All right. Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. My name is Brian Allen. I'll be the host tonight. This week, I tweeted something that went nuclear. I said they lied about Iraq, they lied about Libya, they lied about Syria, and now they're lying about Iran. 14 million views, and the silence from Washington was deafening. Because while the White House tells us we're not involved, our bombers are in the sky, our reconnaissance planes are flying, and our troops are moving. This is our war starts. Not with an announcement, but with a slow burn, a quiet buildup, and a press conference full of plausible denials. Today, we're not playing dumb. We're not pretending this is normal. We've brought together a panel of people who knows what escalation looks like because some of them built the playbook. We're going to be hearing from intelligence veteran and national security expert Malcolm Nance, criminal defense attorney Sarah Spector, former State Department Iran advisor Alan Eyre, disinformation journalist Brian Friedenberg, and foreign policy strategist Ozzy.
Thanks, Brian. I just want to clarify, I'm more of a communication strategist, but thank you for the props there. I just want to say thank you for having me. I really appreciate being part of this conversation, especially because so many discussions about Iran and Israel and the region happen without the nuance, the memory, or the voices of those who've actually lived through the consequences of war, sanctions, and broken diplomacy. I want to start real quick by saying something simple that often gets overlooked in these debates. Iran and Israel are not monoliths, neither are their people. Inside Iran and across its diaspora, the Iranian community is incredibly diverse, ethically, politically, generationally, and so are the perspectives among Israelis. Not everyone thinks with one voice. So anytime we hear sweeping claims, we need to pause, because that kind of absolutism not only misrepresents the reality, but it actually gets in the way of serious solutions. I also want to be clear that I'm not here to represent any government, party, political faction, or organization. I'm not here to frame this as a story of heroes and villains. I'm really just here to look at this moment with historical context, cultural perspective, and commitment to accuracy with the rest of the panel here. Even if the truth complicates the narrative some people are more comfortable with. One last note, when we ask who's pulling the strings, we often focus on military maneuvers or diplomacy, but the real story, in my opinion, is also about perception, memory, agency, and trust, especially among the people caught in the middle. So my hope today is that we not only explored what's happening, but why it's being interpreted the way that it is by people in the region and far beyond, and what that tells us about how fragile this moment really is. And I really appreciate this opportunity. Thanks, Brian.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Malcolm Nance. I've spent 20 years in naval cryptology, naval intelligence. I spent, I would say on and off 15 years as an intelligence contractor, 7 years as MSNBC's intelligence and counterterrorism contributor, which means I work for MSNBC. I've written 10 books, 5 New York Times bestsellers, 5 about counterterrorism, and 4 on the Trump administration. My area of expertise with regards to Iran is I'm one of the few people, I'm pretty sure, who has been in direct combat with the Iranians. I fought the Iranians in 1988 in the Battle of Syri Island during Operation Praying Mantis. They almost sank my ship. Our ship sank their ship, killed 58 Iranians, blew up an oil platform, shot down an F-4 Phantom, then chased small boats all over the place. So I worked there. While at the National Security Agency, I worked on and off for over 10 years in between missions on the Iran-Iraq War. So I saw the Iran-Iraq War in great detail. I am not a Farsi linguist. I am an Arabic linguist, but because I control Farsi linguists, I know quite a bit about Iran, its culture, its language, people, history. But not an Iranian, and I let those people speak for themselves.
Absolutely lovely. Thanks so much. Alan?
Hi, first of all, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Your microphone seems to be working finally over here.
Excellent. Okay, well, I won't go into lengthy introduction. I was a government employee for various U.S. departments since 1984. So I started following Iran in 1984. I retired about a year ago from the State Department. Most of my time in the State Department I spent on Iran. I was the State Department's Persian language spokesperson. I was the only diplomat to be a member of the U.S. nuclear negotiating team for the whole 5 years we were doing it, leading up to the JCPOA. So I've never been to Iran. I speak Persian. I've spent a long time studying it, and I'm very concerned about the current hostilities. To answer the question for the title of this, who's pulling the strings in the Iran-Israel escalation, it's clear to me that Israel has been driving events from the beginning. The U.S. is still largely a spectator. And with that, I'll stop.
Perfect. I appreciate your perspective. We have a few more panelists to introduce. I saw a few people have sent requests in to speak. We will give you your opportunity. Just hang tight. Sarah, could you go?
Yes. Hi, I'm Sarah Spector. I live in Midland, Texas, which is, if you don't know, it's in the heart of the Permian Basin, which supplies oil to a lot of the world. And I graduated political science from University of Texas, went on to University of Texas Law School, and was a prosecutor for 17 years. And now I am a criminal defense attorney. I have, I accidentally have gotten big on X and Blue Sky. I've been quoted in the Washington Post, New York Times, Huffington Post. I'm an amateur political scientist. I study the Constitution a lot. I ask a lot of questions. I'm a descendant of Jacob Javits, who was the senator of New York, was one of the drafters of the War Powers Act after Cambodia and Vietnam. And I come from a very political family. And I have a lot of questions. I always ask a lot of questions, and I try to listen to other people's opinions. And I come from a family. My grandmother lost 13 brothers and sisters and her parents in the Austrian Holocaust. And I am Jewish. I have an affinity for Israel, not a big Netanyahu fan. And I hate war. And with that, I will be quiet.
No, thanks so much, Sarah, for sharing your story. It's very powerful, and we appreciate you being here with us. Brian, could you take the floor, introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you for putting this together. And this already seems to be shaping up to what panels should be on this platform, but rarely are. Often there's the phrase last but not least. In this case, I want to give it up to Brian for putting together this panel, because I'm proud of what I've done, but I certainly feel like the least among the panelists here, some of whom I've been following. Full disclosure, I'm a big fan of Malcolm and have been for years. You'll probably find me agreeing with him a lot. My experience, I'll start with my personal background. My grandparents fled Ireland 100 years ago in the middle of war and occupation, and tried to come to this country to make a better life for themselves. My grandparents on my mother's side. And that was something I was always raised to be conscious of and to appreciate what it meant to be here, but also what it costs to come here and what people are suffering all around the world, what it means to be America and to stand up for people and help them. So I got the political bug pretty early from my parents and my grandparents, and studied politics as an undergraduate, ended up getting a master's degree in peace operations, politics and history double major undergrad, I should say. And then eventually I ended up becoming a freelance journalist, spending a lot of time in the Middle East, but also covering a lot of domestic issues. And I guess what might distinguish me a bit, not from the panelists, but just in general from other journalists, is I spend roughly an equal amount of time on foreign affairs and domestic affairs, and in particular how they interface with each other. I've done some contracting work with multiple government agencies, whether Jordan or back here in the US. And I spent a lot of time in Israel. I spent a lot of time in Palestine, a lot of time in Jordan. So I care about everybody that's involved in this. I have friends tweeting missiles flying overhead, just in Jordan. They're not even in the fight, really. Every night they have to watch stuff flying above the sky. So I'm eager to get into this. And again, I'm honored truly to be part of this distinguished panel, which I'm proud of myself, but I certainly am the least, lasting and least here.
No, thanks for being here, Brian. Absolutely. all voices are weighed equally here. We truly appreciate everyone who decided to come and share their story and share their expertise. Let's start with the aircraft, the RC-135U Cobra Ball, launched out of Offutt Air Force Base. That's not a surveillance plane for routine patrol. That's radar targeting, electromagnetic mapping, the kind of assets you send before a precision strike. B-1B Lancers also took off, not training, not drills, purely positioning. So while President Trump tells us we're not involved, the Pentagon is clearly laying out a very different message, just not in words. Let's just have a listen to this recent conversation between Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. Sure, it'll be a shock to most if you haven't heard this interview as of yet.
For military strikes against them in retaliation. If they really believe that, carrying out military strikes today. You said Israel was right with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them. Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity. We're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them. You just said we were. We are supporting Israel. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening. Okay.
So there you have it. It's as clear as day. Malcolm, you've lived through this intelligence choreography. When we see bombers and recon plane up together, what's really happening operationally?
Well, yeah, actually, I've done this several times in the Arabian Gulf against Iran and Iraq. So I just want to calm everybody down a little bit. None of what you're seeing is unusual. Now, let's talk about first the reconnaissance aircraft. The RC-135 uniform Cobra Ball is a very specialized version of the RC-135. We have other ones which are SIGINT, telemetry. This one is specializing in tracking ballistic missiles and ballistic missile launches. So if it's out of Offutt and it starts transiting to the Middle East to be staged out of a place like, Al Udeid in Qatar or somewhere in Western Saudi Arabia, that means that we're taking the ballistic missile launch threat very, very, very seriously. Now, we have sensors that can do that can actually see this, but this is for very precision targeting. The aircraft, though, is an aircraft. It means if they're sending one, that means it can only do a 12-hour shift or 18-hour shift, and it's going to have to land after a while. So it's for a very specific type of reconnaissance. With regards to sending the 3 aircraft carriers to the region, there's already one there. There's one in the in the South China Sea. Actually, should be going through the Straits of Malacca, and today's Friday, right? Should arrive in the Southern Indian Ocean near the Maldives about mid-Sunday, which means you have 2 carriers there. The third one, the USS Gerald Ford, just left Virginia a couple of days ago. It's en route to the Mediterranean for its routine deployment, but it's going super, super fast now. But it won't arrive for another 10 days, which made me wonder about this 14-day pause that Donald Trump wants to do. Because when we did Desert Storm, we had 6 aircraft carriers. Virtually half of the United States operational aircraft carrier fleet was in the Red Sea or the Persian Gulf to attack Iraq. Iran is vastly bigger, even though the weapons are much better. It tells me that we are preparing for a counteraction by Iran in which we may need to technically spank the Iranian Navy, the Iranian Air Force, the Iranian Army. Despite what you hear in a lot of the reporting and a lot of the people in other Twitter spaces, the Iranian Air Force has not been destroyed. It's moved. It moved to the east. It's been displaced. The only aircraft that were destroyed were 5 Cobra helicopters that apparently never moved away from that place in Kermanshah, and 2 F-14s that were on the ground in a maintenance facility that looked like they were derelict in Mehrabad, Tehran. We haven't heard of any dogfights or any air-to-air kills. So that tells me that the Israelis are just, the Iranians have let them come in. They're hitting what they're hitting. They're going out. They have air dominance at this moment. Air defense has been destroyed, so the Iranian Air Force doesn't have the long-range visual the long-range radars to actually vector them to the Israelis. So that's naval assets that are there. We have lots of surface-to-air missile ships now. We have 5 in the Eastern Mediterranean off of Israel, which will really give Israeli their Iron Dome system. Well, actually, it's not Iron Dome. It's their Arrow and Jacob's David Sling anti-ballistic missile systems a break. The reason last year in April that that they shot down literally everything that was thrown at them, except allowing 5 missiles to get through because they were going to hit the desert, is because the Israelis are getting a little exhausted. They don't have the coverage they had last year, and I guess they were a little overconfident. But things are getting through. Not much, only about 8 to 10% of the Iranian missiles, which is a lot for Israel. So U.S. warships are going to be there, providing air defense over Western Israel and Western and Central Israel. You could set off Tel Aviv, you could set off Haifa, and you could stop a lot of the stuff that's coming, and the Israelis can focus on bigger waves of missiles. We have B-2 bombers in the region, some left. They're coming back. We have B-52 bombers in Diego Garcia. Those are bulk missile carriers that can launch very large numbers of cruise missiles. And then we have the aircraft carrier Saudi Arabia, which is where the U.S. Air Force assets are staging there. And in Jordan, we have F-22s flying out of Jordan. So you want to have all these things together if you're going to do something in order to not screw up. And if you do screw up, something happens, a flock of birds goes through the engines of a B-2 bomber while it's over Iran, and we lose $3 billion, due to a malfunction or somebody didn't remove before flight tag. Those resources can go there to protect and recover those people, which requires U.S. soldiers and airmen to fly over Iran in such a way that they can rescue, recover, or extract somebody who goes down there. These are things we must put into place. One last thing is Iran has a vote in this story. Just because they're not doing great at lobbing missiles into Israel, they have an asymmetric capability. They could, and they once tried to destroy every oil field in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. They have that capacity. They could jump 3,000 Rev Guard guys into hundreds of boats and make it across the Gulf with a hail of ballistic missiles raining down on all of those countries and literally put an end to Arabian oil production for a year or more and occupy that and make it a ground fight, right? Or mine the Strait of Hormuz, which they could do right now. Full disclosure, I've been in an Iranian minefield. My ship was the ship that rescued the Samuel B. Roberts, which struck an Iranian minefield, which to this day, we do not know how the Iranians laid that minefield. Took part in operations that dealt with Iranian and Iraqi mines by the thousands. So mines bad. All of this could go very far south. And it all depends on Donald Trump. And if the people who I know, who know Donald Trump personally, you guys know I'm on a Substack space every week with Michael Cohen and Lev Parnas in a little segment we call Two Felons and a Spy. They say that Donald Trump, if it will not make him look great, if there is no guarantee that there cannot be a failure, he won't do it. And I sort of believe them, but then again, Donald Trump is not the person that they knew. This Donald Trump revels in cruelty. This Donald Trump, I think, is going through the Trump TV show game. And that's what we're in. We're all in a reality show. And I think he's waiting for that third carrier to get in the Eastern Med, and which means he has 10 days to prance around and pretend like he's going to do a big negotiation and get the Nobel Prize. None of that's going to happen. Hope that
So
helps.
ultimately, you believe he's posturing until all the right elements are in place to make a move.
Yeah, sorry about that. My mic was open. Yeah, I think he is posturing for now. However, anything could happen. Fordo nuclear enrichment facility they could have a positive intelligence analysis that materials are moving from there. Look, every Seat Bongo, those little mini pickup trucks that comes out of there, every Hilux, I would assume is carrying an atomic bomb or nuclear materials. The problem is the only way you're going to get that level of intelligence is to be there or have drones right overhead. You can't track 100, Bongos and Hiluxes and IRGC pickups and sedans, right? Also, the Iranians may have moved it before strike. And the wild card in this entire scenario, and I call it the Malcolm scenario, the 1% scenario is they already have a working atomic bomb. And they're just biding their time. They've been awfully quiet about, basics and retribution. But you never know. If suddenly after Trump bombs Fordo and the Iranians just let it roll, and then you find 2 days later, there's a nuclear detonation on the Afghan-Baluch border in the what do they call it? Dar-e-Khabir, right? The big desert that they have there. That would be bad. But that's all speculation. All I know is based on what we know, and what we know is very little right now.
Right. And I've said this on my feed, and I'll say it again. I don't believe this is purely readiness. This appears to be rehearsal. And in the language of war, rehearsals are never neutral. Alan, you worked on U.S.-Iran strategy inside the State Department. What message does this posture send to Tehran's leadership?
I mean, first of all, just if I could comment on what Malcolm was saying, not all of it, but just the comment that Iran has an atomic bomb. I know of no indication that it does, but I assume he has reasons for saying that. But my working assumption is that Iran, for the time being, has no atomic nuclear weapons.
Real quick.
What's the message?
Real quick. I didn't say they had one. I said there's a 1% possibility.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but obviously, anything is possible. I thought you said something about moving an atomic bomb out of Fordo.
No. Materials, not on a bomb.
Anyway, things are usually what they seem. The U.S. is mobilizing military assets to the region, as Malcolm so capably pointed out. Obviously, Iran is drawing conclusions from that. Iran has been very careful so far not to target U.S. forces or U.S.-related targets because it dearly does not want to draw in U.S. forces into the fight. Conversely, Prime Minister Netanyahu doubtless has plans to neutralize Fordo, even without the B-2 delivered bunker busters, but is, I think, waiting at least in part because he prefers the U.S. Enter military action against Iran. So, yeah, I mean, Iran is on its back foot. Its military response is becoming progressively weaker. Its diplomatic initiatives will all be pointless, bootless, nugatory, because Israel is driving events and Israel doesn't want to negotiate because it's not trying to modify Iranian intentions. It's trying to eliminate Iranian capabilities. Over.
Does anyone wants to respond to that before you move forward?
I'd like to, if I can, Brian.
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm not a military strategist or analyst like Malcolm and Alan, but I am someone who watches how public trust is built or destroyed through messaging. And, what we saw in that Tucker Carlson-Ted Cruz exchange is concerning to a lot of people that are paying attention to this. We have regional and we have domestic perception. When we talk about the tripwire risks, that's not just an escalation right now that is extremely high, militarily, but we're talking about an escalation even in narrative manipulation or misunderstanding or misinterpreting. When Cruz openly confirms that, yes, the U.S. is carrying out military strikes against Iran, while other Republican leaders like Rubio, Vance, and even Trump himself are signaling either the ambiguity or outright denial, it does pose the question what Americans are supposed to believe. And I think, Brian, your tweet that set off, that wave was hit to the core of that. For months, we've heard one thing, that the U.S. isn't in the war, that we're just deterring or supporting or observing. But then you have a sitting senator on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee casually saying on camera, we, the United States, we are conducting strikes against Iran. And so when Tucker presses him, he doubles down on it. And that wasn't just a political gaffe, in my opinion, it was a communication breakdown. So, again, I don't want to go into the military aspect of it that, Malcolm and Alan laid out, but this is exactly the kind of rhetoric, the rhetorical drift that loses that American public during during Iraq and Afghanistan. Back then, we were told one thing, but then the truth leaked out into contradictions. And that erosion of trust doesn't just hurt one party. In this case, it would be the Conservative Party, but it does damage the country's long-term ability to engage the public on foreign policy at all, and including the U.S.'s position on foreign policy. With the regional perception, we're talking about, the Middle East. Perception often matters more than stated policy. When we talk about the Iran-Israel conflict, we often focus on hard powers like the missiles and the proxies and enrichment levels, like Malcolm and Alan were just talking about. But in the region, people are also watching something else entirely. They're watching how life and death are assigned value, and they're watching who gets to defend themselves and whose suffering is minimized. And I think that's also important to note in this context, because again, when you have your cabinet saying we're not doing this, and then you have a sitting senator saying we are, and the justification for it is based on a lot of these things that, Malcolm, for example, is laying out. The technical aspect of it, a lot of people don't see. And so they see, we're sending out jets and we're sending out this stuff, but wait, we're not supposed to be involved in this. So I think those tripwire risks and that communication breakdown, I think, is also important to note. Thanks.
Brian, can I jump in as well?
Sure, go ahead. I saw Sarah also had her hand up, so Sarah, you go after, and then Madavi.
Oh, well, since Sarah had her hand up, would you like to go first? I did not put my hand up.
No, you're fine. You can go.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm agreeing so far with everything I'm hearing. I was making the points earlier, and it doesn't take a genius, but certainly Malcolm made an excellent point that Trump operates his presidency in many ways as a reality TV. Will I bomb Iran? Will I not? He wants to be the center of attention. He wants all eyes on him. He wants stay tuned to the next episode. He's never happiest than when the attention's on him. And even with the G7, he said why he was leaving, and then he changed that story, right? My whole thing with what to expect, the military, obviously, as Malcolm very astutely laid out, and others were speaking about as well, these are the moves you have to make if you want to be responsible. If you just send in assets in rush and don't send the support assets, and what if something crashes assets, and how do we rescue people? If you don't do that before you go in, it's either an emergency where something immediately has to be done, or you're being irresponsible with people's lives. So all of this makes sense. And right up to the last minute, if people remember in June 2019, Donald Trump sent planes to go bomb Iran. And at the last minute or few minutes, he called them off either just before or just after they were going to enter Iranian airspace. And they turned around and stopped the mission. But they were minutes away from bombing Iran. So my whole thing with Trump at this point, I think I can guess his motives pretty well, or even know them in some circumstances. Trying to guess exactly what he's going to do in a situation like this, it really, up until the last minute, this person who loves shock and theatrics and substitutes that for substance constantly loves to play that aspect. So in terms of words, be very careful about what you're hearing and pay attention to what you're seeing, what's moving around where, what's actually happening on the ground. And if what you're hearing doesn't match that, try to drown out the noise. And again, I want to thank all of you, because this is the first platform that's of any size that I've been on during this conflict now, where I feel like I'm not hearing mostly noise, right? Everyone here is thoughtful and professional. I really appreciate that. The last point I want to make is that the way I'm looking at this from a big picture sense, I'm going back, and this will take a minute here, but then I'll land my plane. I'm going back to when I was an undergraduate in my sophomore year in 2002. I was reading Judy Miller's book, if you know who she was. She was later discredited, but this was a New York Times journalist who ended up doing some pretty bad reporting on the Iraqi WMD program, which was real and certainly existed. It wasn't something made up by the Bush people, though it wasn't really real and existing so much by the time we invaded. And that's a whole nother discussion. But we were paying attention to all of this, right? Because my sophomore year was 9/11, right? Junior year was the Iraq War. And so I had some great professors and we had some great guests, people coming from the US government, all kinds of great explorations with my students and professors. And I remember thinking to myself, my goodness, I will never see a worse group of people, but especially by the time Iraq started to unravel. I'll never see a worse group of people running our government as civilian and military leaders in the Pentagon or the White House try to launch a war that I'd be less comfortable with and more nervous about their competency at handling this. And somehow, I'm only 43 now. We're 2 decades later, and I'm saying to myself, oh my God, I was an idiot. We're actually in a position where I'm dramatically more worried about people that I fought 20 years ago. Were terrible. These people are so much worse. They're so much less qualified. They're so much less temperamentally suited. They're so much less serious. I don't like Dick Cheney. I don't like his fault, but he's a serious person. I don't have to like him or agree with him. P. Hegseth and J.D. Vance are not serious people, for example, right? So I didn't trust those people back then, but now I'm worried that we are in a situation where regardless of how you feel about the justness of the war or not, there are right-wing religious and I would say increasingly fascistic rulers in Israel now pushing for war for understandable reasons and there already is fighting with the worse fascistic right-wing Islamic regime. And then we have fascistic right-wing Christians who are running a lot of aspects of our government, and they're all responsible for how this is going to turn out. So I don't feel very good. I'm really hoping for the best. And there's a decent chance that something awful might not come out of this. But also, just remember when we invaded Iraq in 2003, how many people were saying the unintended consequences? I bet Malcolm might have been one of them, but one of the unintended consequences could be the empowerment of Iran as a regional supremacy, a regional power that would dwarf a lot of the other regional powers. That getting rid of Saddam the way we did would empower and help the Iranian regime become as powerful as it is now in terms of the way everything else played out. No one was talking about that in 2002. We were talking about, the next on the axis of evil could be Iran. We're coming for you next. All that hubris. So hope for the best, ladies and gentlemen, but please don't listen to people that are telling you they know there's going to be some successful revolution with King Reza, with the restoration of the monarchy and all. I mean, don't listen to those people, please. And check anything I say and anybody else says, but I think you'll find that the people here are actually trying to just share their analysis and we're not pushing an agenda. So thank you again.
Are you speaking, Sarah? I think you're
okay. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know if I was next. Okay. Yeah, I agree. The ineptitude in the presidency and his cabinet is extremely worrisome to me, and also the lack of transparency and the amount that the American public has been lied to over the past, I'd say, decade or 2 decades is truly horrific. But what I also wanted to say is that, again, I believe, and I hate to criticize a party that I lean to, I believe the Democratic leadership is not rising to the occasion. I have not seen Hakeem Jeffries. I have not seen Schumer ask questions or give briefings. And again, I guess I'm confused about, the Constitution, which gives the power to the Congress to enact war. I'm confused about why we have the War Powers Act. I'm confused as to, I think it would be healthy for Congress to enact the War Powers Act, and I know Kane, who I've never thought, I just never thought he'd be a leader after his vice presidential role, because I was, when he was a candidate, because I never really was that impressed with him. But he is speaking up and wanting to ask questions about what is going on and what is our plan. And I think it would be really healthy Congress to, because I don't think this is a partisan issue. There are people in the Republican and the Democratic Party that are isolationist. There are people in the Republican and Democratic Party that are not isolationist. And I think a good, healthy debate as to what our strategy is going to be in the coming year or two, because obviously Israel is in a posture where they're being aggressive, where they are trying to again defend their country. They're obviously, having a country who we don't know, none of us know what their nuclear capabilities are at this time, unfortunately, because we don't have inspectors, thanks to Trump, going in there and trying to figure it out. But, Israel, I believe, is the only country in the world right now that has another power that says they have, that we know has a lot of at least nuclear capability in the future, saying they want to destroy them. And so, of course, again, Israel's going to be offensively on the attack right now, and strategically, because Iran is failing in a lot of aspects. But again, what is America's role going to be, and why isn't Congress stepping up to the plate here? I just feel like we are just, again, this just shows that we are becoming an autocracy more and more. And especially with this crisis coming up and the lack of congressional voices, it's very frustrating to me. And I'm going to yield the platform.
Yeah, of course, I appreciate that. And, I believe that even if the intention is deterrence, the impact can be provocation. And that's where the line between defense and escalation starts to blur. Sarah, legally speaking, if the U.S. is supplying surveillance, mid-air refueling, or targeting intelligence that support active strikes, does that cross into legal warfare? Omar, I see your hand. I'll allow you to speak. Just hang tight.
I don't think so. I don't think it does. I don't think it's warfare at this point. I mean, America and Israel, right? I mean, we supply a lot of the intelligence to the rest of the world. I think America needs. I believe we should. I believe in a strong intelligence community. I believe that a strong intelligence community keeps us safe, and I think that we have to give some room for support of Israel to do what they need to do to figure out what is going on in Iran. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. I think that when we cross over is when we actually go and supply. I mean, actually go and bomb them, or I think that's when we cross into legal warfare. But I don't. Of course, and I'm only going on what I know from the news. I'm certainly not inside this government. I don't know what we're really doing. Hopefully we're getting everything, but I don't think supplying intelligence or strategically, lining up defensively for Israel, or helping them defend from missiles from Iran. I don't think that crosses a line. Maybe other people do because of the anti-Israel sentiment around the country right now, but I don't.
Right. A lot of people believe that support is involvement. Ozzy, from the perspective of people in that region, in Tehran, Ankara, Beirut, how are these U.S. military moves perceived? And I would love for Madavi and Omar to also chime in as well, but go ahead, Ozzy.
Thanks. I spoke a little bit earlier about, I mentioned the hard power regional perception, right? But then there's also the human aspect of it. And I can only speak to what I see, what I hear on social audio apps, what I hear in the news, and I watch behaviors a lot. And what what I see is across Arab capitals and in Iran specifically, there's a growing sense that Western powers, particularly like, for example, the US, they have a different threshold of tolerance for both civilian casualties, depending on who's doing the bombing, and then also the commitment to a process, right? Seeing it through. I've said this before. I'm not there. Like, there's a glass ceiling above me, and I look above my head, and it's the big wigs making the decision. But as a layperson and somebody who's looking at public perception and from a communications perspective, even, and how communication, manifests into some kind of policy, it does cause some concern for a lot of people. They say, hey, we were in this negotiation process, and all of a sudden, there's a 60+1 day thing somewhere lurking in the background. And then we hear a statement the other day that this was, 17 days we've been in this. We started this 17 days ago, which then erodes more trust, both in the region and domestically here in the US, because it's like, wait a second, was that a snafu? You said 17 days, or was it really 17 days? What's really going on here? What triggered this? So even governments that oppose Iran, like Saudi Arabia or Jordan, are seemingly treading carefully. Iraq notably issued a strong warning against regional escalations. And for Iraq to do something so publicly, it signals how seriously they're viewing the risk of becoming a proxy battleground again. So I think there's a lot of sentiment there with that regard. Inside Iran, the reaction is a little bit complex, but revealing. We've seen a notable rally around the flag moment from a lot of people. I don't like using absolute statements, so I'll just say generally, there's some people that do that. There's some people who are supporting it. There's some people in the middle that just don't even know how to feel about it. They're just numb from it all. And those people also impact how their government operates on this. So it's not just from regime supporters, for example. It's not just from those regional allies or those governments that historically have opposed this regime for 46 years. But it goes beyond that. It includes former political dissidents, persecuted groups, Iranians who fled the country decades ago. So it's not just about supporting the system. It's about rejecting foreign impositions. And this growing sentiment, and I see this, we had Charlie Kirk come out, we had Tucker, of course, we talked about Tucker. We've had a lot of big names, even on the conservative side, that have come out and said things like, hey, what's going on here? And the general sentiment here in 2025, I think we can all agree, is that, we'll handle our own house. But right now, it just seems like somebody's trying to knock down our door and like shove themselves in. And so that message kind of resonates both from a policy perspective, I think, and I think it could, again, as I said in the beginning, could lead to that tripwire risk, where the risk of escalation in this moment is so extremely high that it's not because either side wants a war, but because the region is full of tripwires, whether we like it or not. And many of them are misunderstood or misread. And I think Malcolm kind of alluded to it, Alan alluded to it, Sarah, Brian. And so there's a lot of this that kind of goes together. But the messaging of it is really, really important, both domestically with voters and regionally and specifically Iran, Israel, and Iran. Thanks.
Right.
Brian, can I ask Ozzy one super quick question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, Ozzy, I'm just curious, because if your sentiment matches mine, because I'm trying to think of an example where a major Western power or major world power was involved in a military conflict where there are three main principles. Here it's the US, Israel, and Iran, where the communication, the skill and efficiency and general effect of the communications from the very top of these three governments has been so off the mark, all over the place, contradicting themselves, getting caught in lies. They have to change this story and that story over and over and over again. And it's honestly on all parties. And I'm wondering if you've seen something like that from the very, very top in any conflicts like this that you may have looked at.
I haven't, but Brian, we also have to recognize that we're living in a different world right now, right? So, in previous conflicts, we didn't have an X or Instagram or Facebook or these audio apps to rely on. We didn't have information exchange the way that we do. Right now, we have 24/7 spaces where you have different analysts and advisors and experts and former military members. I mean, Malcolm's I got to give you props, Malcolm. Malcolm's been on a lot of spaces lately. So we haven't had that in the past to really unpack what's going on, to understand it. And so when you start to unpack what's going on and you break it down and you look at the nuances, it does provide the space and the opportunity to look at things in a different way that you never thought of looking at before, because you're hearing more diverse voices in real time. So I don't know if that explains it, but I'd be happy to expand on it if you have more questions.
Well, I guess more like the official the quality of the official communication coming from the very tops of the U.S. government, the Israeli government, and the Iranian government. I mean, I feel like everyone's got to be confused.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that either, too. But we also, the comm strategy from the Trump administration this round is very different even from the way it was before, number one. You have like a real like live in your face, like everything is there. I think I said this on the radio the other day. I think the risk to the Trump administration right now is the fact that since the start of this war, escalation, conflict, whatever you want to call it, since the start of it, it has been inconsistent statements from Israel. So you have contradicting statements made from Netanyahu, and it's pushing back on what Trump is saying. So Trump is saying one thing, and as Americans, we're supposed to believe our commander in chief. And I think he's done a good job in this respect of trying to explain what's going on. But what I have a concern about is at some point the buck has to stop, right? So at some point he's going to have to come back and say, look, I'm saying this as the commander in chief. I was elected to be the president. I'm here. I'm saying this on behalf of the United States. Marco Rubio came out immediately and put out a statement on behalf of the cabinet and the administration. And then, hey, Bibi, stop contradicting what we're saying over here because it's causing a lot of issues. And I think that there's a moment of reckoning there that has to be reconciled.
What about Tulsi's video?
I don't know if that's really like saying much. I've thought about that. I've watched the video. The timing of it, sure, but there's a million different reasons why timing and things are put out the way that they are. But that speaks to, I think, one of the things that Brian was trying to, bring to the forefront here too is narrative, right? The narrative manipulation on all sides. And so you can look at the glass half full or glass empty, depending on what your personal and political views are. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. To us, the moves may be quiet, but in that region, they're very loud. And in that part of the world, symbolism is strategy. Perception can be just as dangerous as action. Let's break down the law here because no one in Congress seems interested. The War Powers Resolution of 1973 was passed after Nixon secretly bombed Cambodia and Laos. After that, Congress said, never again. What that really means is that if the United States president was to send U.S. forces into hostilities, Congress must be notified within 48 hours. Troops can only stay engaged for 60 days without an official vote. And after that, if Congress hasn't authorized any war, then they must be withdrawn within 30 days. So ultimately, he has about 3 months of military action without, before it becomes unlawful. It seems simple, but here's the catch. Presidents from both parties have completely ignored it for decades. We had Clinton in Kosovo, we had Obama in Libya, Trump in Syria, and now Trump again with an Iranian adjacent operation. The military moves we're seeing should trigger notification and debate. Instead, we've gotten somewhat of a blank silence from Washington. And that's how undeclared wars become American default. Quiet enough to hide, long enough to forget, deadly enough to bury accountability. Ted Cruz said it best, or rather said it worst. I mean, he went on Tucker's show and, he called for escalation against Iran, but he couldn't name the population of the country that he wanted to bomb. And Tucker Carlson, in a rare act of clarity, exposed that hollow foreign policy thinking that a lot of the neocons in Washington have adopted. One moment, here we go.
Brian, can I jump in?
Space, may I speak here?
Brian,
one moment.
I don't know the population at all. No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple? Like, how many people live in Iran? 92 million. Okay. Yeah, how could you not know that? I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's, because 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
If you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about...
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not. Okay. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who claims
about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it's a good idea to kill General Soleimani.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. If you really believe that,
carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was
right with our.
So we've all heard that. I mean, you know, it's quite alarming to see, you know, the depravity from Ted Cruz's aspect, as a matter of fact, given that he's calling for open bombardment of a country, but he knows absolutely nothing about the demographic. Sarah, if politicians like Cruz or the executive branch are actively involved in military escalation but denied publicly, are there legal consequences? Is that a constitutional violation? Sarah, I'm not sure if your microphone is on. Are you hearing us? Is anyone hearing me?
Yes, I think it was a double.
I hear you just fine.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm sorry. You said I was muted by host. I got it. It said I was muted by host, and now I'm unmuted. Sorry. So what was your question, Brian?
Sorry about that. If politicians like Cruz or the executive branch are actively involved in military escalation but denied publicly, are there legal consequences? If this is a constitutional violation that we're looking at?
I would hope there are legal consequences if they're, I mean, I don't know of a, I mean, I don't know what, I don't know if like the Justice Department would go after them, but I mean, hopefully the consequences are political, I mean, these we have got to hold our senators and our congressmen accountable. And it seems to be in this world of mass communication that we're getting less communication from our representatives. I know that my last congressman would make live appearances here on the ground and give us updates for what is going on in DC, and almost quarterly, probably in Midland and Odessa. Currently, Pfluger, who is a congressman who is ex-military, he has done none. He does nothing on the ground in Midland, Odessa. He has these forums where you don't get to talk, over social media. I do believe that our Congress and our senators have been dumbed down. Cruz, obviously, he appears to have a lack of knowledge of what he's talking about. They're not used to they go on, like Cruz went on this forum. He thought it was going to be a friendly forum, obviously, and he goes in and he gets massacred by a conservative TV host, and that's good. We want our media, whether they're conservative or maybe lean progressive, we want them to hold people accountable. And I don't know, honestly, and maybe I'm just ignorant. I don't know a whole lot of the federal justice system. I don't know of a way of going after a politician for misrepresenting what is going on in our military. It appears that our politicians get away with that, honestly, a lot now.
Right.
And I think there's a lack, because the media has become so segregated, where the Democrats go on MSNBC and the Republicans go on, Fox or other podcasts that are friendly to them, you don't see, and it was refreshing to see Tucker actually challenge someone who, otherwise probably ideologically agrees with him. It's something that we all need to see on all the networks, and I don't see it. I don't, and I think honestly, journalists have basically it just doesn't seem to be out there anymore. The real journalists that ask questions of everyone, regardless of what their political affiliation is, and that's why I think it's so important, again, that our forefathers, as well as the senators post Cambodia, post and the congressmen post Vietnam, they tried to rectify the secrecy around war. They tried to rectify it and give the power to our representatives, our congressmen, our state senators, the people that we more closely see every day in our hometowns, and ask for accountability as to what is going on strategically. And to me, even though we have, again, such great capability now to interact with each other, it just seems like we've just going into our own silos, and we're not getting true and accurate information.
Right. So apparently we've got a legal framework, but no one's following it, and no enforcement mechanism when they don't. Alan, what diplomatic back channels are likely active right now between Washington and Tehran, if any? And is there a risk that domestic political posturing overrides actual de-escalation efforts?
Well, there are no de-escalation efforts. In terms of back channel communications, even though Iran has said it will not negotiate with the United States until Israel stops bombing, we know from press reports that the foreign minister of Iran, Sayed Abbas Araghchi, has been in phone conversations with President Trump's Middle East advisor, Steve Witkoff, the gentleman who was leading the U.S. negotiations. We also know that Foreign Minister Araghchi addressed the UN Human Rights Convention in Geneva today, that he met with the E3, the three European foreign ministers of France, Germany, and the UK to talk about diplomacy, but at least per Donald Trump, nothing came of that, and the Europeans don't have a role to play. So Iran is trying very hard to jumpstart some type of diplomatic initiative that will get Israel to stop bombing. But as I said in my previous comments, Israel has no motivation to stop bombing until it achieves its goals. So for the time being, it's just moving down its target list, largely unopposed. And the U.S. heretofore has no motivation to try to restrain Israel. Over.
Understood. Siegel, you had a question. You had your hand up for quite some time now.
Actually,
George can go if he wants, because he had his hand.
Yeah. Sorry, actually, I've been waiting a long
actually,
time,
I had my
Brian,
hand
if
up
I
for
may.
quite a while, and
George,
Siegel just came up.
before.
Yeah,
I
you're
need to
correct.
speak before I go.
Omar and Madavi had requested to speak a long time now.
I appreciate that, Brian, and thank you for
Omar
the
just
space.
came up after me. I've been up for 20
No, I did
minutes,
not,
Brian.
George. I did not.
Yes, you did.
And you're flicking everybody off with your PFP. So let me speak, and then you can wait your turn. But I'm saying that.
One moment. This is meant to be a professional discussion. Please, guys. Malcolm, I do have some more questions for you. If you could send a request in, I would love to have you back on the panel. I do have some questions here for you. I'm going to let you go now, Madavi.
Brian, may I just speak? I just have a few things to say, and I've been waiting patiently. Would you mind if I spoke?
If he wants to go ahead. I'll go after him. No problem.
Thank you, Madavi. I appreciate that. And I'm just going to piggyback off what Ozzy said, a few points she made earlier in the space. And I think this is in the zeitgeist of everyone here on, who's pulling the strings, as the title implies. This notion that the United States is a sideliner or oblivious to what's happening here or completely uninvolved is complete nonsense. I think it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the global community as a whole. Iran has been the boogeyman of America since the late 1990s up until today. They have been the big domino in the American foreign policy playbook for decades. And this, in my opinion, falls on a silver platter for the Americans in the sense that Israel is able to conduct these strikes in Iran, paving the way for American intervention. This is what's happening here. I mean, if you look at the region as a whole, if we zoom out a bit, with Iran out of the way, that leads to American dominance altogether, led by the Saudis and the Israelis, the trade routes, the reclamation of all energy, including gas and oil. And if you look at foreign policy from the United States, like many have spoken here before, it was much more difficult to have these type of conversations. And I think this is starting to resonate with people. And we've seen the Freudian slips when it comes to Ted Cruz and even Trump himself stating that he doesn't believe his own national intelligence. I mean, if it's not any more obvious than it is now, I think we can make some assumptions here, because if Trump is saying he doesn't trust his own intelligence, that only leads us to believe that he's trusting the Israeli intelligence, which, again, I'm not trying to deflect the Israeli war, which it is. It's a Netanyahu war, but it wholeheartedly is benefiting America, American interest, American foreign policy, and it's not going to work. Netanyahu has led us to destruction and to devastation. And I think it's only a matter of time until he realizes that, because he's gained this false sense of confidence because of previous tactical achievements he's made. And it will be a matter of time until the residents of Tel Aviv can't handle the bombardment anymore. And this notion that Israel claims full superiority over Iranian airspace is complete nonsense. I mean, this is just the beginning. We're only 7 days into this. And I think it's time that not only the American people, but the whole global community wakes up to what's actually happening here. And this is a Israeli-led war that was unprovoked. And Iran, being a member of the United Nations, has every right to defend itself and its people. And Netanyahu won't be the one to decide the future of Iran and its people. Irrespective of what you think of the current government, that is up to the Iranian people. And the region as a whole, the future is in their hands, not Netanyahu and his agenda. And I think this whole talk of nuclear deal or the deal is still on the table is a complete smokescreen. There was never an intention to provide a deal. This is the same deal that Trump tore up himself in 2018. The idea that he's going to provide it with new terms is complete nonsense. And this is just for Trump to go back to his base and his America First crowd and say, well, look, I tried diplomacy. I'm supposed to be peace-loving president. I tried it and it failed. So I had to take action. And that's what America is planning to do with the 2-week deadline. It's to allow the carrier groups like the ones in the Indian Ocean to arrive to the Gulf, get everything mobilized in the preparation for a response from Iran should America hit the nuclear enrichment plant in Fordo, which only American B-2 bomber can complete. And that's what's happening here. And I think it's long overdue for us to finally, as an American people and as a global community, to address things for how they are and what's actually happening on the ground. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you allowing me to speak on your space here.
Absolutely. Alan, another question. Do you think the Trump administration is trying to contain escalation quickly, or are they walking into the same trap of proxy brinkmanship that has plagued every prior administration?
Again, I don't think the Trump administration is what we need to be focusing on. They're largely a spectator at this point. And by President Trump saying he's going to wait or make a decision in the next 2 weeks, I mean, The main dynamic now is between Israel and Iran, specifically what Israel decides to destroy next. The U.S. could become a factor in this in one of two ways. One, by attacking Fordo or a larger target set in Iran in cooperation with Israel, or two, putting effective pressure on Israel for a ceasefire. I have no indication that it's going to do either of those for the moment. I certainly agree with Malcolm's point that we're buttressing our military presence in the Persian Gulf in case we decide to enter into hostilities against Iran, or in case Iran foolishly decides to initiate hostilities against us. But at this point, I think it's a mistake, and maybe this is my foreign policy background, to focus on what the U.S. is doing, or to a lesser extent, what the Europeans are doing, because we're not factors. What's at play right now is that having achieved military dominance over Iran, what is Israel trying to do? It's trying to eliminate Israel's nuclear infrastructure. It's trying to eliminate Iran's missile production capabilities and retaliatory abilities. And in a larger sense, it's trying to eliminate Iran's ability to project power outside its borders and trying to destabilize and incapacitate Iran's ruling structures. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on these days. Over.
Perfect. Malcolm, I had a question for you if you could come back up as a speaker. I'm not sure if you're hearing this. In the interim, Brian, you track information warfare. What narratives are being spun right now to sell this quiet escalation without public outcry from your perspective?
I'm so glad that you asked that question, actually. And could I reply very briefly, if I keep it brief, to something that Alan just said, or would you prefer I just go with the disinformation?
I heard you. Go ahead, Al. Brian.
Okay, great. Thanks. So I would, with our distinguished former diplomat here, I would agree with much of what was said. I guess in terms of the spectrum, I'm not thinking that we're not involved or we're barely involved. I mean, we obviously are in the support role, right? But we are taking a step back. We're not jumping in. So I think I would largely concur.
Brian. I'm going to let you continue. I'm going to let you finish, but I do have a question for Malcolm right after. But go ahead. I just wanted to clear that up. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, if Malcolm gets back, I'm happy to stop talking and see my ground to him. But yeah, I agree mostly with what Alan said. But I think we're essentially
I'm here. Just go ahead.
Malcolm, please.
Yeah, my question for Malcolm is if U.S. assets are being deployed, and briefings are happening behind closed doors, but there's no vote, no public mention, no televised hearing. Is this a breach of democratic process, and would this be something that is raised to that level in that discussion, or is it just something that they would avoid completely?
No, I mean, U.S. forces being briefed and even working in cooperation with Israel, giving Israel intelligence, hearing what intelligence Israel has, watching the strikes, getting post-strike analysis in support of Israel, technically in an enabler role. That's what I was trying to mention when I was asked this question, is that we are in an enabler role, and we are not a direct combatant right now. But that would be called Friday, right? In the armed forces. We do this all the time with many of our allies. We have been supplying Israel with bombs. We've been supplying Israel with fuel, supplying Israel with deeper level intelligence than they have the capability of to detect systems that they can't see, or like ballistic missile launches, things along that lines. But none of this is out of the ordinary. What will be out of the ordinary is when we apply them in an offensive mode and shift from an enabler to a direct combatant. And that, of course, gives Iran, casus belli, to attack U.S. forces wherever they are in any depth that they choose.
Right. And that definitely absolutely does make sense. I have a question for both you and Alan. Alan, if you could go first. I would love to know, just based on your expertise, where are the actual flashpoints right now, geographically or diplomatically, that could drag the United States into direct confrontation?
I mean, the obvious one. The flashpoint is if the U.S. initiates hostilities against Iran as part of Israel's attacks, that risks escalation. Or the less likely scenario of the two, the lesser likely, if Iran initiates hostilities against the U.S. or against U.S. allies in the region. Short of that, I don't see any other realistic. I mean, there's really nothing. I mean, interesting is not the correct word, but as I said in my opening comments, the same dynamic that was established within 24 hours has been playing out since then. Israel's increasingly successful in bombing its target list in Iran. So to me, the most interesting aspect of what's going on is what is Israel choosing to bomb? For example, it bombed some law enforcement facilities headquarters in Tehran today. So it's clear to me that Israel is trying to precipitate, I think, increased internal dissent and popular discontent. We've already heard messaging from Prime Minister Netanyahu saying, Iran has no better friend than Israel, and inviting the Iranian people to reclaim their glorious heritage and stand side by side with Israel in the future and marching toward a glorious future. So flashpoints, yeah, when the U.S. decides what to do, if anything, militarily. Other than that, I can't think of anything else. Over.
Perfect. Malcolm, do you have any thoughts on where you're seeing certain flashpoints maybe popping up?
Yeah, there's only one flashpoint left in this game, and that is the trigger that is inside Donald Trump's mind. If he chooses not to attack, then he comes off as good on his MAGA base. But then he appears and will be mocked by the Iranians, by the Israelis, and others who know how to pull his trigger. He will be mocked as weak and, wanting to do kumbaya and have negotiations instead of being the final Thor's hammer that comes down on the Fordow complex and puts an inglorious end to the absolute destruction of the last of the Iranian nuclear weapons program. Now, of course, that's tongue in cheek because we don't know what's under there and we don't know what's out of there. This could all be sitting, not joking. They could have nuclear materials and lead in cases and in a goat pen out near the Baluch border.
Right.
In Baluchi area. So Donald Trump is the last trigger that we have to worry about here. And he is the most irrational triggers. He is literally a match in a powder magazine. And he could blow himself up. He could blow everyone else up along with him. Hopefully, calmer voices are speaking and he's listening to them. But let's not make any mistake. Crazy people talk to Donald Trump all the time. Laura Loomer got the director of NSA and the deputy director of NSA fired on her say-so. They cut the National Security Council staff down from 150 to less than about 25 people. He's getting no advice. And as he said today in an interview just a couple of hours ago, he doesn't believe U.S. intelligence. That's what he said.
Yeah, I saw that video.
He believes what he believes.
Absolutely insane.
I mean, the man is incompetent. He believes whatever the Israelis tell him. He believes whatever Laura Loomer tells him. He believes the last person in the room. That's the theory around Donald Trump. So everyone is constantly around him giving him that. But imagine for a minute that he actually listens to Mike Huckabee, who gave him this spiritual evangelical belief that God himself placed Donald Trump in this position. To a narcissist, this is like choir music to his ears, angels descending from heaven. And all he has to do is do what Harry Truman did, which is nuke Fordow, right? Which he could do it. He could use a 10 kiloton nuclear bomb that would have to be airdropped. It would have to be dropped from a B-2 bomber, and it would absolutely collapse that mountain, and nothing would be left. Right? Granted, you might kill 200,000 or 300,000 people in the immediate area. Then the radioactive fallout might go everywhere in the Middle East. And then you would have the Iranians would absolutely devastate the entire global economy. See, secondary, tertiary, quaternary effects from his decision. He doesn't care about them. All he cares about is the moment that he is considered glorious. And that's the danger that we're in.
I couldn't agree more.
I agree. One more thing, Malcolm, kind of walk us through the worst case scenario here. If Iran retaliates or Hezbollah strikes U.S. targets, how fast does this kind of turn into a regional war? Or would we essentially just go straight for a global war and kind of skip that region altogether, and just we'd see people like China and maybe Russia joining in? What are you seeing?
There's no global war option here, right? China is now the adult in the room in the world. We are the petulant, nasty little child, thanks to Donald Trump. Russia is just watching from afar. They're too damaged to do anything here of any consequence. They're not going to fly in air defense systems and take over the air defense of Iran, because they just get shot down, and their missiles have already proved to be lousy and have all been destroyed to virtually a man. So that being said, it is already a regional war, because you're flying across multiple countries to deliver ordnance. So we have a giant Israeli, Iranian version of the War of the Cities, like they had during the Iran-Iraq War, where they're just bombarding each other's cities. Israel's sticking to military targets. Iran now is just hitting whatever they can. Hezbollah can't do anything. Maybe attack the American embassy in Beirut. Maybe, some small, low-level terrorism or individual terrorism by aggrieved people. But I don't think most Iranians are aggrieved right now. One last thing. The Israelis are bombing police headquarters because there are people out there who believe what I call the Ahmed Chalabi solution. He's the guy that got us to invade Iraq. Well, everyone is out there believing that Reza Shah Pahlavi is going to come riding back back into power in Iran. The monarchy will return. Everyone will come from Gondor. The king will return.
Why are you disrespectful?
And they will
Why are you disrespectful? But Malcolm, why?
Sorry, you're being disrespectful. You weren't invited to speak.
You need to stop, you nyack.
No, you're being.
Hold on for a minute.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
I'll explain why. I've met him. I've had drinks with him in Peacock Cafe over a decade ago. This is great that the Iranian diaspora believed that he could have some power, but every Revolutionary Guard policeman, sailor, soldier, payroll clerk, logistician, contract officer is still at their job, distributing bread, handing out ammunition, sitting on street corners. 125,000 IRGC members have not been killed or dissipated or disappeared. They are still controlling Iran. And unless there is a popular street level uprising where the Artesh, the Iranian army, rises up like they did in 1978 and 79 and overthrow the government, along with a rebel group that suddenly gets a boatload of weapons, it isn't going to happen this week. And it's a fantasy for anyone who thinks it will. If it does happen, you are now in civil war. And Iran will suffer thousands upon thousands of dead while the rest of the world watches from the outside. Hard reality, but true.
Brian, can I share a story from the Middle East that's completely related to what Malcolm was just saying?
Brian,
would it be possible for some Iranians to speak, or myself? Maybe. I've been here 45 minutes, and I've got quite a bit of data and information I'd love to share.
I'm Iranian, and I came after George.
You are a regime.
I think I'm next on
Thank you. I'm Iranian. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. And I'll throw the mic to an Iranian with your permission right afterwards.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, I think Seagull's up here, but wanted to share a couple quick things. The first thing is that between October 17th, 2023 and February 2024, Islamic regime-backed militias launched 170 attacks on U.S. military bases in Syria, Iraq, and Jordan. This resulted in multiple injuries, but thankfully no deaths. These attacks were officially and openly in response to U.S. support for Israel and Gaza. Separately, as we know, October 7th resulted in over 40 American citizens killed. And, it was well over, I think it was 8 or 10 that were taken hostage. Several American citizens were killed by Hamas and other militants in captivity. The Islamic regime of Iran has had significant control and massive amounts of support for Hamas. We also know that the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut, which I think Malcolm alluded to, has in the past been the scene of 200 plus U.S. Marines killed by the Islamic regime commanded people. We know about the U.S. Embassy bombing that same year.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to,
I was there for all of those.
Exactly. What's that, Malcolm? What's that?
He said he was there for all of those. Anyway,
I was there for all of those attacks.
Exactly.
First American Embassy bombing, Marine barracks bombing, second American Embassy bombing, third American Embassy bombing.
No, and exactly. And so my point is that it is not like the Islamic regime has not been continuously attacking Americans and murdering Americans using its proxies in very recent memory, as well as going back to the 80s. That's the first thing. The second thing I wanted to mention is that an earlier speaker had said that, Trump had pulled us out of, an agreement, and so there was no way to monitor, et cetera. There's truth to that, but it is also true that because Iran is a member of the NPT, Iran is subject to IAEA inspections, and they recently announced, just very recently, days ago, that Iran is non-compliant with its safeguard obligations under the NPT. It found that the regime is systematically running a secret clandestine nuclear weapons program. That's explicit. They said that it is accumulating highly enriched uranium, which is only needed for nuclear weapons. It is obstructing the IAEA's verification and monitoring efforts, right? So this has nothing to do with JCPOA. This is its obligations under the NPT. And this is the first time the IAEA reached any kind of similar position about anybody that it's monitoring over the last 20 years. So that's another point I kind of wanted to make. And then, lastly, I think, and I'll wrap here, I think it's super important to kind of look at where folks, like I think, when I come up, there's a particular, perspective I have or where I'm coming from. I think it's really, really important to talk about, where we're coming from and contextualize, not because our bios are so important, but because where we're coming from helps expose our bias. So, Azi is Ibrahim Yazdi's granddaughter. Her grandfather was one of the founders of the IRGC and Quds Day. He played a key role in establishing the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And I just put up top a heartbreaking story of someone who was probably killed, whose father was probably killed by Ibrahim Yazdi. I will put up some additional notes up top, but it is important that people reveal their connections to the Islamic regime, their very intimate connections and family connections. And when folks sit there and try to defend the regime or pretend like they're neutral and speak so calmly and positively, when in fact they are a regime apologist, right? I think it's good if they expose their bias up front, and then we can make up our own minds.
Could you share your bias, please, George?
Who is a apologist on the stage?
Yeah,
here.
It's me next, right?
Ozzy is the granddaughter of one of the founders of the IRGC.
No, but I'm asking what she said. She's not responsible for what her father did. What did she say that made her an apologist? Did you listen to what she said?
Brian,
I've heard all the things she said, yeah.
So what did she, I'm asking you what she said today that made her an apologist.
All right, guys.
What made her an apologist?
So we're getting into a not a very clear discussion here. So if you guys want to respond, I just raise your hand and we'll get to you. I do think this is a great conversation, and it's very good that both sides have concerns and both sides clearly have data that they want to present to the world. But ultimately, we have to be respectful of each other, and this is a panel for that. So with that, I'll unmute your mics and I'll allow Ozzy to respond, and then I'm going to go back to Malcolm and Alan for more questioning. Go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. I want to go back to what we were talking about earlier. Look, as a communication strategist and an Iranian American, I've been following a lot of this also closely, and there is increasing concern by a lot of people by the disconnect between the rhetoric we hear on the ground, the reality that we see. I think when we were talking to Sarah about the constitutionality of this, I think more than the constitutionality, I think Susie Wild was probably drinking a bottle of Maalox during that Tucker Carlson interview with Ted Cruz. But it does speak to something when somebody like Senator Cruz doesn't know the population in Iran while also defending those U.S. strikes and then bringing in this conversation of murdering Trump, et cetera. And I say that because what Tucker was asking for was appropriate. Like, hey, if the position of the United States is we're going to do this because of X, but we're operating and supporting on the premise of Y or Z or ABC here, then it does erode some of that public trust and undermine the steps that the United States is taking militarily. And, all that said, I'll add one more point, and then I do have something that I'd love to hear from Malcolm and Alan about. We're talking about Ferdo, right? It's often portrayed as a nuclear threat, and it may very well be, right? I'm not an analyst or an expert on that aspect of it. But to Iran, it is also somehow a symbol of survival. It was built inside of a mountain because after JCPOA, the deal didn't feel permanent. So to an extent, part of the policy, from what I understand from it, and Alan, I would love your thoughts on this as well. Fordo is reverted from a cooperative site to basically essentially a red line. At the same time, Israel has continued to conduct those low visibility military strikes. And I'd love to hear Malcolm's take on this, like both in Syria against IRGC targets and sometimes deep inside of the territory. So in return, I can see how Iran uses asymmetric tools like proxy militias, drone swarms, and cyber capabilities. So even though this isn't a declared war, and none of those tools were declared wars, to me, just looking at it even from the PR side of it, they look like slow burns. A lot of loaded, plausible deniability, but no less dangerous for it, right? So my question for both Malcolm and Alan, really, to bring it back to what we were talking about, is from a military strategy and an intelligence standpoint, how does inconsistent or politicized language, especially used by U.S. elected officials like this, how does that affect the signaling and the risk assessment? Not just to the Iranian government, because we were, I think Brian asked about behind the scenes backdoor, how's the negotiations going, but to others watching, like the regional proxies or the other global powers. I think, Brian, you brought up China, for example, some of these other superpowers. So all of that's all taking into consideration that technically the U.S. isn't officially at a war right now. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, Malcolm and Alan.
Apologies, Brian, just a quick point. Siegel, I think, was next to speak. It would be great because she's an Iranian. It would be great to hear from her.
I think he's the host. I think he's the host.
I think it was me.
I think I asked him a question.
All right, so I will absolutely let you guys speak.
Can Brian stop interrupting everyone, though? I know you're the host, and I really respect you, but can you tell Brian not to interrupt every single person?
I'm interrupting the people. No, I interrupted the people who were interrupting. I haven't interrupted any speaker.
You need to stop talking to me. Do not direct me.
I was asking the host.
I'm sorry. Why are these people behaving this?
All right, so I believe the question was directed towards Malcolm and Alan. All the questions, George, Shah, you'll get your opportunity to speak. Just please, let's all be respectful here. Go ahead, Malcolm, Alan. I believe Ozzy had a question for you guys. Like I said, George, you'll have an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
I think Alan's best position to speak about signaling. Don't you think, Alan?
I'll answer briefly, and you can certainly contribute afterwards. 2 points. Fordo was started to be built in 2006, became operational in 2009. There's nothing intrinsically more dangerous or more relating to weaponizing about Fordo than any other site relating to the nuclear program in Iran. The reason Fordo is important for Israel and also the US is because it's so hard to destroy. So if in fact your goal is to extirpate, eradicate Iran's nuclear energy program for fear that they might use it to build a nuclear weapon, you have to take out all the relevant sites in addition to other sites. And Fordo is one of those. That's the last one that Israel has not yet significantly attacked. So it is not the case that Fordo is more dangerous or is the weapon part of Iran's nuclear program. In terms of messaging, there's a former Senator Hiram Johnson. He said, truth is the first casualty in war. We're seeing that. You know, I mean, disinformation, misinformation, lies. Sure, the US government is doing that now. Every government is doing that now. The Israeli government's doing that now. The Iranian government is doing it now. So that's just part of the problem of assessing what's going on. You don't just have the fog of war, as I think Clausewitz said. You also have people trying to impose their narrative on you. And with that, I'll stop.
I think that Fordo is how can I put it? Someone said that it's a symbol of Iran, symbol of Iran's power. Yes. But you're looking at a facility that they crash built in 3 years under a mountain with thousands upon thousands of metric tons of concrete to create 3,000 clandestine centrifuges, which sole function is to create highly enriched uranium enough to make it fissile material so that it can detonate an atomic bomb. Any facility like that, and I saw one like that before in Afghanistan, in Durunta. There was an old Soviet underground mountain complex that Al Qaeda had taken over. And we could not get in there. This wasn't the sort of place we'd want to drop 200 or 300 Rangers in. So we just used B-52s and we blasted every exit and sealed it in and made it a sarcophagus. Fordo is a tougher nut, but we have the ability certainly to close the entrances, to do this, what we call this multiple bomb drilling routine that the Israelis have mastered, where you drop a chain of bombs one after another. When one goes in and blasts a hole, the next one goes precisely into that hole and blasts down to the next layer. And you sort of drill in to the side of that facility. But for the most part, the most we can do conventionally is collapse the tunnel network that goes in there, see if there's any secondary effects of that there are air shafts or tunnels, emergency escape tunnels that we missed, blast those, and then keep blasting them till we're satisfied that no one's going to go in or out of that for years. The centrifuges can be knocked off their foundations and things like that, even though they're generally not just shielded, but they're on blast absorbing material or systems. That being said, Fordo is, if that is the beating heart of a nuclear weapons program, which 3,000 centrifuges, which were outside Natanz, is already gone, right? The Israelis have pretty much liquidated Natanz, which was the really public, well-known one. But this one, excuse me, I've got a little cold. But this one, no one is going to rest until Fordo is done. So if we don't do it, the Israelis are going to start dedicating a lot of airtime doing what I just said we should be doing. They don't have the bombs for it, but they have the bombs to close the entrances and start working their way in there and making that a conga line of thousands upon thousands of 2,000-pound laser guided bombs to just make sure that that is all sealed inside.
Absolutely. George and Siegel, I believe you guys had something you'd like to express. I'll give you the opportunity to do that.
Can I please like talk uninterrupted
Go ahead,
for
Sigal.
like a few minutes? Thank you. First of all, it's really frustrating as an Iranian that her family and a lot of my friends' families and my family's family, we've all experienced such oppression from the Islamic regime, and the Islamic regime is not Iran. The Iranian people are not Iran, the Islamic regime. I am actually in distress these past few days. We can barely contact our families. But despite what people want to fearmonger here, the Iranian people inside Iran, and we have proof and videos, and we have our families, they support Israel in helping us remove this Islamic regime that has oppressed us for so many years. Also, Brian, you have two Islamic regime mouthpieces here, Mahdavi and Azi. They're the Islamic regime mouthpieces sitting here on American soil promoting the terrorist Islamic regime in spaces. You have them here like infiltrating and talking the Islamic regime talking points here. So someone like me that has been affected by the Islamic regime, having them here and having someone like Brian that's not even Iranian, do not interrupt me, say, do not listen to the Iranian people that support their king, or do not listen to these. First of all, you don't get to talk for us or over us. You don't get to talk for us. I don't care if you're doing that. We talk for us. We decide for us, and you don't get to tell whoever is in the audience, and I'm talking to the audience, I don't even care about who's on the panel. I love George, though. You don't get to tell us what to do, what not to do. We, the Iranian people, know who we want. We, the Iranian people, once we free fucking Iran, will be the ones to decide who is our leader, who's not our leader, what's going to happen, what's not going to happen. We're not going to have anyone fearmonger what's going to happen inside Iran. No one's going to nuke Iran and there's going to be 300,000 dead people. Bibi doesn't want that. Trump doesn't want that. I understand none of you here like Trump. I don't care. He's not my president. But I respect what Israel is doing. The Iranian people inside Iran respect what he's doing. No one else. Your governments for years appeased the Islamic regime. Our people died, got tortured, got raped, got executed, and your government appeased our oppressors. And again, you have people like Mahdavi sitting here laughing while people, 16-year-olds like Nika Shakarami, were beaten to death, raped, and tossed into the street in 2022 because she protested. So sitting here and having people like Brian talk over me, where my family members were executed inside Iran, no, that's why I'm frustrated. I'm not a rude person. I am very conversational. But when I sit in a space and have people talk over me and what happened to me and my family and my people, that's how I'm going to respond. Especially when we can't even talk to our people right now. But despite the fear-mongering of oh, they're bombing Iran. No, people don't want that. That's a lie. I have videos. You can go on our profiles and watch them. Search. Don't just sit here and listen to Brian and Ozzy and Mahdavi. That Brian probably gets paid by the Islamic regime. Nayak, by the way, Nayak is the...
All right, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, really. This is ridiculous.
Right,
this is ruining equality. It's not your fault, but this is ridiculous.
Is it ridiculous talking about the fact that...
All right. So again, we're not being respectful. So I'm going to pass the mic back over to Malcolm and Alan. Quick question for you, Malcolm. What kind of internal intel conversations are likely happening right now behind closed doors? Would CENTCOM be treating this as preparation for imminent engagement? And I have heard that from a close colleague of mine that is currently deployed and is actually looking to be released, but was told recently that those papers may not be approved simply because there's a possibility that war may be on the horizon. I'd love to hear your perspective here. Sorry about that. You were on.
There you are. Yeah. Well, first off, let me give Seagull her props here. She's a person who has an experience that she's sharing with her family, and she's reflecting that. That's one perspective we need to respect, right? But there are 91.5 million people in that country. And the decisions that are going to be made after that involve the regime stability and the people's desire for freedom are going to be made after whatever the US and Israel does. Now, also, I didn't say the United States was going to drop a nuke there. I said the only way to absolutely 100% make sure that Fordow is gone is something that people have mentioned, like US Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, essentially told Donald Trump he needs to make the most momentous decision since Harry Truman. And Harry Truman nuked Japan twice. So he was hinting that Trump should consider that. So just keep that in mind. But no one's saying we want that. Nobody wants that, okay? I'm an ardent anti-nuke. I worked in a nuclear command post once. These things are bad. So that being said, with regards to what the intelligence community is doing, we're going to do what we do every day, only now we're doing it in a more accelerated pace. We have very specific targeteering that we're going to do, and it will continue on right to the moment that the president says no go or no go. If the president says no go, we are still going to continue that intelligence analysis and collection until U.S. forces are pulled out of the region or the tensions subside. We generally don't stop collecting against a country like Iran. We also have to watch what Israel's doing, because we have to deconflict with the Israelis. Our fighter aircraft need to know where their fighter aircraft are. When they penetrate Iranian airspace and come back out, we need to make sure that it's Israelis coming out and not Iranians coming out. Same thing when they cross over into Jordan. An enormous amount of communication is going to be going on at the theater level, at the tactical level, and we call it the flag level as well. But this is just par for the course. Like I said, it only is going to impact this discussion based on what the final decision is. And if Donald Trump says 2 weeks to let him negotiate, we will continue this pace of operations for 2 weeks until he makes a go, no-go decision. If the Iranians come to the table and they stand down and the Israelis have finished their strikes, or the Israelis want to continue boring into the side of Fordow because Trump doesn't want to, we are going to watch that too, right? We collect intelligence on everybody. We're enabling Israel at this point. We are not actually in operations with them. So it's going to be relatively par for the course until such time as all the carriers are withdrawn and relative regional stability comes back.
Absolutely does. Definitely does make sense. Will Coyne had, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to just chime in real quick. I hope you guys can hear me and there isn't too much background noise, but I think this idea that if you're not an Iranian, you can't speak about the situation there or have a broad understanding of the Iranian people is a little silly. I've been listening to Malcolm go through different spaces, and he's obviously, to me, one of the most knowledgeable people on not just that region, but on Iran as well. I've heard him speak about and I mean, you can laugh all you want, but the fact of the matter is Malcolm knows a lot more about Iran and the Iranian people than a lot of Iranians. And that's just a fact, right? I challenge you to...
Whoa, simmer down. I wouldn't go that far.
I will go that far because I'm an Iranian. And so I have the anecdotal experience.
God bless you, music again.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. What was that?
What happened to not talking over Iranian?
No, it's interesting. The people that are...
sound of your own voice.
Brian, the people that are always adamant about not being interrupted are oftentimes the ones that interrupt the most, I found. It's really ironic and hypocritical. But anyway,
Iranian.
I'm sorry?
I said you sound so Iranian.
Based on what Iranian?
Are we really going to tolerate people questioning how they sound? That's not professional behavior.
ببین دهنت ببند یه لحظه. من دارم صحبت میکنم. شما ساکت باش. شما ساکت باش. Okay.
Guys, there are Iranian language spaces you guys can go to.
Listen,
duke it out.
Listen,
let's hear your question.
I just think you're so rude. Wow. Threats. Okay, so the only thing that I wanted to highlight was Rotham's point about one, you can't speak for all the Iranian people in Iran and them wanting the return of a monarch. I think that if you study Iranian history over the last 125 years, you'll see that the Iranians, above all else, have wanted democracy. And there's a reason that the revolution of 1979 happened to begin with. And so when you
monarchy is not a form of secular democracy.
Can we please end? If she keeps doing this, she's ruining the space.
It's okay.
No, you're interrupted.
Constitutional monarchy, not a form of secular democracy. Answer that question.
So I'm not going to answer your question.
Because a constitutional monarchy.
So look, Siegel.
Brian. This is what the monarchists do. They come in here and they take over the space. They do it everywhere. Okay. They come in and they take over the space.
Please, guys.
Again, go ahead, Will Coin. I believe you had a point you wanted to make. Again, it's one person at a time.
I mean, I'm trying. Again, it's quite ironic to me that the people who don't want to be interrupted are the ones interrupting the most. So Iranians are made up of Persians, of Azeris, of Kurds, of Lords, of Balochis, of Arabs. And if you think that a regime topple, a forced regime topple, isn't going to lead in internal chaos, then you haven't studied the last 3 or 4 regime topples across the Middle East. I mean, this is something that, and just to paint somebody as a regime sympathizer just because they don't agree with you on the Pahlavis is such a ridiculous thing to do. Like, the degree of gaslighting is so immature.
It has nothing to do with Pahlavi, but go ahead.
I mean, you have his picture on your banner, so there's something to do with it. But that's all I wanted to say, Brian. Okay. That's all I wanted to say, Brian, is that Malcolm is spot on. He's been spot on across multiple spaces. And it's not as simple. It's not as simple as just, okay, Israel's going to bomb Iran and then the Ayatollahs are going to leave and then Pahlavi Jr. is going to come and then we're all going to sing Kumbaya. No, it's going to probably lead to decades of internal turmoil. I don't know what the right answer is, but I don't think it's that.
Can I make a quick point?
Sure, yes.
So early on, I made a comment about Ahmed Chalabi in Iraq. This is the guy who talked us into invading Iraq. I mean, lied, cheated, stole, somehow managed to survive up to the day he died. I lived within 2 blocks of him in Baghdad in a safe house. And one day, a suicide bomber blew up about a block away. And the torso of this bomber landed literally on my foyer doorstep. But the bomb wasn't for me. The bomb was for Ahmed Chalabi. Okay? They tried to kill this guy left, right, and center. He is a real snake. But he got us to invade Iraq, and it cost us 4,700 soldiers dead, hundreds of thousands of Iraqis dead. And he survived as a member of parliament to the day he died, but he never ruled Iraq. We have to understand the internal dynamics of these countries. You have to respect them. Some of you want liberty and liberation. Awesome. That's great. But I said this in another space. I'm going to tell this story every time. I had 250 Iraqis that worked for me in bodyguarding and intelligence collection capacity. And one of my favorites came up to me one day while we were in Karbala at the tomb, Karbala or Najaf, can't remember where. And I visited the tomb of Ali and the tomb of Hussein during Ashura. And I said, wow, this is amazing. He says, Chief, if Muqtada Sadr says for me to kill you, I'd have to kill you, right? And I laughed. I thought he was joking. He goes, no, seriously. This is who we are. This is our religion. This is our culture. But that's Iraqi. I'm saying there's enough people in Iran right now who believe with what exists that you would go into civil war. And that needs to be respected. And, as much as we would want the government to just fall, collapse, everyone walk away, those IRGC cops are sitting at the intersections. They are having tea. They are playing backgammon. They are eating bread and going home to their families. And the Israelis have not bombed them. They can bomb police headquarters all they want. The regime still stands.
Another thing I wanted to just
Brian, could I
just very
respond to
quickly,
Malcolm?
Brian, just like
okay,
literally
sure, no problem.
5 seconds.
Will Coyne, I believe you wanted to speak.
I just wanted to say one thing. Just Iranian youth obviously want to live in a freer society. At the same time, even if I don't know the percentage of what percentage of Iranian youth despises their government, but let's say for the sake of the argument, it's 70%. I'm just making a number up. Do you think they hate their government?
80%. I put the poll up top.
Okay, sure. 80%.
It's one poll.
Thank you, George.
A poll of 150,000 Iranians, so it's pretty good.
Okay, please, for the sake of the argument. Okay, for the sake of the argument, I'm almost done. Let's say it's 80%. Do you think right now, they're focused more on their hatred of their government or the hatred of a foreign invader dropping bombs on
100% on their government because they've been mass murdering them. 100%.
Okay, well, my cousins, who I haven't been able to contact in the last 36 hours, would beg to differ, and their friends would beg to differ.
Well, they're in that 20%. That's cool.
Well, I don't have the numbers to argue with you, George.
I do. The poll is up top. You can look at it.
No.
158,000 people polled.
Sure. You said
the
that.
The statistical significance is over 99% confidence.
You don't have the numbers of the Iranian people that are having bombs dropped on them.
Do you understand how statistics work? Do you understand how statistics work? If you have 99% confidence, it means you're very confident.
These word games.
No, they're not word games. They're called math. It's called math. It's called math.
You're a very smart guy.
I'm not stupid, but it's called math.
Hey, Brian, could I jump in? I've been waiting for a while.
Yeah, go for it, Brian. These guys are going to interrupt.
Thank you. Okay, yeah. So the main, this is really important. And I want to build on Malcolm's point, which is really important. I really thank you. I was invited as one of the 4 panelists or 5 panelists. It's great that they're involving other people, but Brian did tell me I could speak right now. So, and I was waiting. Look, I respect the first person that was actually called on to interrupt, that was called on to speak was you when you said I was taking money from the Iranian government. I had not interrupted someone who was called on to speak because you just started speaking. So that didn't count. Anyway, I please let me go. Thank you. I'm not going to accuse you of taking money from anybody, and I'm not going to talk about you. I'm actually talk about the issues. So in terms of narrative warfare, I think people really need to understand how these types of wars work. You can go all the way back to the Greeks asking the Romans to intervene when they were worried about the Seleucids, and they were selling them all kinds of whatever. They were telling them whatever the Romans wanted to hear. It'll be fine. It'll be easy. And Rome got sucked into wars over decades. They had to keep coming back and back and back because it was way more complicated than the people that wanted them involved to get them sucked in were telling them. And the writers at the time even pointed out, boy, the Romans didn't know the geography or the culture as well as they thought they did. They made a lot of mistakes because they didn't know what was going on. Let's jump forward to the Bay of Pigs in 1962, right? Castro is obviously not the Castro regime, the remnants of it. It's not very popular now. In 1962, that was not the case. I know there were some people who are, I'm really anti-communist and no one ever liked Castro. Okay, great. Go live in your fantasy world. The Batista regime was absolutely horrible, right? And what happened? Okay. When Castro took over, a lot of the elites in Cuba who were totally fine living their fat cat lives and letting Batista sell out Cuba to mob bosses in America and American multinational corporations, and the people live like dirt. Okay. And so there was a reason there was a revolution there. Now, I'm not saying Iran was as bad. I'm going to get this. Iran was not as bad in 1979, okay, as Cuba was before its revolution. But 3 years in, you had the Cuban exiles. These are very educated, elite, wealthy people who were often tied to the regime, people who had no problem with their country oppressing the masses. I'm not saying anything about any other group of people yet. I'm talking about the Cubans. They sold JFK and they sold the American people a bill of goods that was nonsense. And who paid the heaviest price? Cubans. Cubans were killed in high numbers as a result of what happened. It was a massive failure. It didn't hurt the Castro regime. It helped strengthen the Castro regime. And that regime is still in place. And I'm not a math whiz, but 1962 was before I was born, and I'm 43. Now, let's jump ahead to Iraq, because Malcolm very appropriately brought up Ahmed Shalabi twice. Again, all through our history, you have powers, larger powers, the smaller powers have different factions. And there's never a monolith, ever, no matter what Palavis will tell you, okay? And the bottom line is these powers have different factions. They come and engage the larger powers, and they're trying to get the larger powers to intervene to settle scores and advance their own factional disputes within their own country, okay? That happened with the German tribes and the Romans and all kinds of everything in between, including Cuba. And now let's go to in Iraq in the 90s, in the 2000s. Okay, so now let's discuss the situation with the Iranian revolution. I think the situation with the exiles, they were not as bad, I think, in some ways as the way that the Castro exiles, after that revolution were tied to the regime. I think that a lot of these people lost a lot. A lot of them were Christians and minorities who were not looking forward to being, even some Jews, Iranian Jews. They didn't want to stay, and they had every right to want to flee, and they had every reason to flee when that revolution came. And I don't blame them for fleeing. I'm not calling them traitors or anything like that. There's some extremists supporting the regime would. That's silly, okay? But what people need to understand, and Malcolm made this point, and so did Will, okay? I'm an American. I've spent a lot of time abroad. People ask me, what do Americans, and I always tell them, listen, I'm going to tell you what I think. Then I'll try to tell you what I think other people in my country think. Now, I live in a country that's relatively free and fair. There's robust public policy polling, and there's sadly not a tremendous amount of diversity of American thought. It's not like the Israeli situation with polling, where there's so many different views. The polls are often quite inaccurate, and it's very hard to know what the hell is going to happen in the Israeli election, which makes those more fun to watch than American elections. So what am I all trying to say with this? It's easier to poll in some areas than others. I just mentioned two free and fair societies where, at least, well, for the most part in Israel, if you're Arab, it's different. It's the Palestinian in West Bank with Gaza. That's a whole nother thing. But Israel's still a democracy within its 67 borders. That could change, sadly, under Netanyahu. But for purposes of this conversation, polling in a free and fair society happens in Israel and in the U.S. Let's look at Russia. There's something called the Levada Institute. They do public polling. They're regarded as quite credible and well-meaning, and they have a really tough time polling in Russia. Why? Because people are afraid. It's an authoritarian regime. People, if you're a pollster going up to people in an authoritarian regime, half the time people will run away and they'll tell their friends, don't talk to this person. And even if they agree with everything you stand for and they want to shame the regime, they're afraid for their lives and they're not going to risk it. And so measuring public polling in authoritarian regimes and measuring public opinion is very, very difficult. Anybody that comes up here and touts one poll about something, about anything, let alone something like Iran, and tells you this is what this means and this is what the situation is, just disregard them, because they're not credible and they don't understand research methodology. They are narrative warriors. They are propagandists trying to push a narrative. I am very cautious when I am seeing a poll that fits with my preconceived views. I'm like, let me make sure I check other polls to make sure I'm not falling into confirmation bias. There's no effort to do that from what you heard earlier here. So when you hear someone tell you they know how their whole country or 90 or 95% thinks, I can't even tell you that about Americans. And we're easier to poll than others. There's nobody outside of Iran right now that hasn't been there for a long time that could tell you what's really going on the ground there as far as public opinion. You can estimate, I'm sure. I agree with the Pahlavis and other Iranians that speak here. Obviously, a majority of Iranians dislike the regime. There's no question. We don't know what the percentage is. Anyone that tells you what the exact percentage is talking out of their ass. I'm sorry. And I'm just so sick of this, because this is what Ahmed Shalabi did. This is what happened in 62. American troops died. The people of those countries died. I do not want to rush headlong into a war with bad information, with people trying to manipulate public opinion and manipulate us. Okay? So I want to know the facts, and I can tell you, if Malcolm says that it's hard to know what's going on the ground and around as far as public opinion, he's not saying that as an Iranian his heart's bleeding Iranian, and he's very emotionally tied to this subject, even though he is, because he cares about it. He's saying that as a professional analyst. Okay? And to the degree that I'm trying to offer my position as a professional analyst, that's what I'm trying to do. You can take it or leave it. And if the Iranian government paid me, I'd send the money back, even though I need the money. So thank you.
Brian, may I respond briefly?
Sure, go ahead.
I've been waiting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So just a couple of things. First, I think Brian E. just made an excellent argument I agree with, which is that, people are afraid in totalitarian regimes. So that's why when you have in a totalitarian regime a poll that shows 80% of Iranians, and click, you guys up top, go up top for a minute and just click the poll that I shared for a second, because this poll is actually 158,000 people. So when you have in a totalitarian regime people who are afraid, and 80% of them say that they don't support a regime, that says something. So I'm glad Brian's argument actually helps mine. The second thing I found kind of puzzling in his argument. He was like, listen, in Israel and in the United States, we have relatively free societies, whatever the phrasing was. And so polling is accurate, whereas other places where it's totalitarian, it's not. Well, you're right. It's not in the opposite direction, like not liking the regime that doesn't make you free. If anything, that 80% is probably underestimated. The other interesting thing, Brian, let me finish, please. You actually talked for 10 minutes. I timed you.
I didn't open my mouth. I didn't open my mouth. I literally didn't open my mouth. I was about to, and I muted myself. Just keep going, bro.
Okay, good. So I'm going to keep going. So the other kind of interesting thing to say, like, hey, and hats off to Malcolm. He's an extraordinarily, intelligent, smart guy. I missed other things he said earlier in the space. So I got here after he did much of his speaking. So I'm not trying to contradict anything about Malcolm. I'm just sharing. I'm sharing a poll. To say that what I'm saying is propaganda because I shared a poll of 158,000 people, right, is weird, right? Saying I have
George,
an agenda.
who conducted the poll? Do you know who conducted the poll? I just want to know who conducted the poll.
Brian, I reserve my time. Brian, I'm speaking. I didn't interrupt you. Please mute.
Apologies.
Okay? Thank you, Brian. You can research. You can click up top. It's the very first link up top.
I just want to know who paid for it and who conducted it and with the methodology, because that's what matters.
Brian, I'm speaking. You're not speaking. Please mute. I gave you 10 minutes, dude. Please. Thank you.
You all want to tell us that?
Okay. So as I was saying, what you have to understand, right? Saying things like, well, one poll, and whoever's talking about the poll, I didn't say I personally polled the people. I didn't say that I am going to guarantee it's 80% versus 85 versus 79. My point is that an overwhelming majority of people in an authoritarian society who were polled, and by the way, guys, when you see a political poll, they'll poll 2,000 people, 5,000 people, on America, a country of 300 million people. Here, they polled 150,000 people in a country of 90 million people. So if you know anything about statistics, right, the confidence level, when you poll a much bigger number, your little n, right, your sample size is massively high, and your actual big N, the universe you're polling, is significant, is 1/3 of the United States, right? You're going to have a much, much bigger level of confidence that you are correct. Now, other polls have been done too. Some things Brian said I really agreed with. He said, people pontificating outside, the only people who really know are Iranians, like inside the country. You're right, which is why when you take a poll of 158,000 people inside the country, you're going to get a pretty authoritative view. The other thing he said is, I trust Malcolm. Malcolm's a really smart analyst. I agree. He's a really smart analyst. Guess what analysts do? Analysts use qualitative data, quantitative data, their own experience, but quantitative data is pretty important. Analysts look at all kinds of data, and I am sure someone like Malcolm, someone like me, right, who does analysis for like business, right? I take data and I look at it, and what I'm seeing here and what the vast majority of people see is that and you even had to admit that, yeah, probably the majority of people in Iran don't support the regime. So I don't know what you're arguing against, because you're arguing against data, right? And unless you have a different, unless
I just want to point something small.
No, one moment, Warren. It's not your turn. You'll go whenever he says. Okay, thank you. One thing I'm just trying to say is, when you have data and you share data to say, oh, that's propaganda, give me your source. Dude, do your own work. Go click on the poll, go research what it is, where it's from. I'm not here to do your homework for you. I'm sharing data.
Why wouldn't you want to reveal,
Brian,
Yeah, I think, George, please continue your point, and we're going to go to Madavi. He has been waiting for quite some time. And we're going to roll right back into
Thank
Malcolm.
you. Yeah, I'll wrap in less than a minute. I appreciate you, Brian. Yeah, like, it's the weirdest thing when someone posts a public poll with a link to the website, which provides all the sources. You can look it up, do whatever you want with it, to say, why won't you share the poll? Why would I don't care. You go do your own work, right? My point is
I tried to find your link. There's a lot of other posts. I couldn't see it. That's why I asked.
Oh my God. It's the very
I literally
first
couldn't
link.
find it.
Okay, so I'm wrapping. Brian A., thank you so much for the time to correct.
I think something happened to your microphone.
Yeah, I got double muted. Yeah, Brian A., thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you letting me kind of correct a few things. As always, hats off to Malcolm and his experience and analysis. Nothing I said is in contradiction. I actually don't know. I didn't hear Siegel assail anything about Malcolm either. I think she was talking about her family, her experience. She was talking about her family and her experience, and the fact that this regime, right, this regime is responsible for hundreds of thousands. We don't even know how many people disappeared, of murders and deaths, right? That, right? And I come from a totalitarian country myself. I come from the former Soviet Union, so I have a lot of empathy for that. And when someone speaks about this, right, I think it's good for all of us to take a second, the way Malcolm did. I think Malcolm gave a great example of, like, acknowledging, hey, she's talking about hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people who have been killed, murdered, tortured. And I think for us to try to, in any way, shape, or form shut her down or poo-poo what she says is crazy. We should be listening to her. I'm done.
There's a difference between a personal story and claiming you know how everyone in your country thinks. Two different things.
She didn't claim how she did not.
My heart goes out to anyone who has suffered from this barbaric regime. But we're having a discussion about actual policy and reality, and so someone who has suffered from the regime doesn't get a special permission to just.
People and jumping in, Brian. Why? What's up?
You keep referencing me over and over again. I'm living in your head.
I was talking about Siegel.
Guys, if I can make a quick point.
Thanks, Malcolm. Go ahead. All you.
If I can make a quick point, and we can. Yeah, thanks, George. Hey, let's assume for 1 second, because he's right, we are quantitative people. Let's assume for 1 second that 80% poll is correct. By my estimate, out of 91.5 million people, I believe the number's 37.6% are men under the age of age 30. And that would come out to somewhere around 34 million people. If that poll's correct, that's 27-ish million people who were against the regime out of that 34 million. That still leaves you 7 million young men with guns, who could be given guns, who could make a civil war or anything like that very, very difficult. And you're talking about people have to go against their father, their grandfathers, their family's internal dynamics. I wouldn't even start to guess at this. To imagine how this could be affected and be made into something that would be a viable revolution. But that's not for any of us to discuss. I mean, we can discuss it, but it's not for any of us to conject until it actually happens, until we see some internal dynamic that none of us can predict. Some people could say the Shah will come back. And, I make my joke about coming back from Gondor and raising the flag. Well, that's what it was going to take. You're going to have two armies clash, and you'll have to have the return of the king for that to become realistic and viable. But the likelihood of that now, because I hear a lot of people saying that could happen now. That isn't going to happen now. We need to just be realistic about that.
And to piggyback off what Malcolm said with Reza Pahlavi, I was curious about what he had to say about the situation too, with the speech he gave. And you know what's interesting? Not once did he mention anything about the Israeli airstrikes happening on his so-called home country. And this is the person that's supposed to come back and unify the country. Let's think about that. Not once did he condemn the Israeli breach on Iran's sovereignty.
What are you even talking
and
about?
they're expecting the Iranians living in Iran to roll out the red carpet for this crown prince living in exile.
Have you
And I don't mean to
listened
speak on
any of
Iranians,
his
but to me,
speeches or read
that's
any
not
of his
that's not the
posts?
leadership that's gonna come in
Have
and save the
you
day.
read any-
Thank you.
Brian,
All right. So again, we're kind of going into that territory again. Where we're speaking over everyone. So I'm gonna let Madavi speak. He's been
All right, great.
waiting for some time.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna go back to Siegel. I know she wanted to express something as well. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, you know, we Iranians over here, Persians, we've been sitting here watching this whole dialogue go along. First of all, we're in negotiations, right? Supposedly for this so-called nuclear deal, only to come and find out is we're actually getting a war attacked on us by Donald Trump and all of the things. They've been not dealing the cards straight. You know, this affects us badly, and we got caught off guard, upside down. So the first night, that's what we saw. Our air defense systems wasn't very good. No excuses. That should have never happened, and we got somewhere high people gotten killed, and we paid the price for it. But look what has happened since then. We have picked up the pace, stronger than ever. One thing we did do smart is we put a lot of decoys out there. So all these things that think they're hidden, a lot of it's been decoys, all right? And the way they're launching stuff, it goes by the oldest to the newest. Yes, the newest stuff hasn't even started coming out. I believe you'll start seeing some of the newer stuff probably about 4 or 5 days from now. All depends on what the how many more rockets they shoot a night. If we start doing thousands, it could be a little bit sooner. But if we do 300, 400, you can probably see the ones that are 2 or 3 years old. We'll start getting into them probably next week, and those are even deadlier than what has been displayed today. So then I hear people talk about, you know, that Iran's not doing well, stuff like this. They have no air security. Their systems are back up. They've been shooting stuff down, you know. And look at Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv cannot go on 10 more days with this type of security on it before their debts are due. These debts are going to be due in 10 days. I heard the big payment's going to be due, and they'll send them to bankruptcy. That means, again, us people, American people who pay taxes, have to come and bail out this little genocidal regime again. The regime who's been killing women and kids for the last year, who has an ICC warrant out for war crimes. I mean, I can't believe where America is putting itself in at this time. I mean, the world's not looking at us really good. That's not me just thinking of this. This is a lot of groups are thinking of this. You look around the world, I mean, nobody wants anybody to do anything for Israel. Israel has been brutalizing all his neighbors, attacking them. You know, finally he's bitten off too much he could chew. You know, and they're getting hit hard for it. They're going to get hit hard. I'm telling you, the missiles that are going to be coming out and the other technology that's going to be coming out, it's going to be shocking. Now, for why has Trump has not come in? I was a fighter for a lot of years, so Trump is a UFC guy, so I've spoken with him a lot of times. But there's a lot of monarchies, some of them around Trump and everything, and they were filling his head up that people are going to come out, Iranian people are going to really come out in the street for their monarch guy. And he's seen of it. There's no signs of it. There's not even one. There's nobody cares about that guy. That guy, his reputation is very low. He has none above it. His dad's name was the Suitcase King. So there's not, what we had to do to get, I was a little kid back in the 70s, when the revolution happened. I remember what we had to do, get rid of him. And what ended up happening, soldiers came out and the people, protesters came out on the streets. The first night they were shooting, they killed a bunch of soldiers, right? Like you were saying earlier, people like, hey, that's my cousin, that's my aunt, and stuff. So that's when the soldiers really stopped, and then they came in and told him he's got to go. And he left. And what did they take with him? He took everything. He went on like 2 or 3 planes full of treasures he stole from the Iranian people and left with it. I mean, this guy has never done no favors for Iran, So when in '73, when Mossadegh got overthrown in Ajax, whatever, Operation Ajax, they overthrew him. Where was he at? On a year-long vacation. Then comes back as a monarch, with his suitcase packed. So this is when this stuff starts. People of Iran, the reason this regime is in there, right? Understand me when I tell you this. It's there because they don't want to be people's bitches. We are an 10,000-year-old society. We're not used to being under the foot of anybody, and we're not going to be on the foot of anybody. That's why these hardliners were put in there, So in monarchy doesn't come back, and we get ran by the outside people. We will do it fairly, but we do not want to be like any of these monarch countries. That's not who we are. We are Iranian, Persian with a long history. We've seen it all. We've seen everything that's going to come out there, and we know what's going to happen. But we are also peace-loving people. I mean, we've done everything we can not to cause casualties. Whatever we do is give warnings the first 3 times. There's no other country will do all this. Now they attacked us, are killing us again. The gloves are off, and it's going to get harder and harder. And I don't think Israel, for another week of it, I think Israel's not going to be able to put up with this. If they turn in nuclear bombs, watch, Iran's got a big surprise there, and people are going to be surprised. There'll be nothing left of that state, in my beliefs. I don't know anything, but I'm pretty sure of it. So this is what I'm trying to tell everybody is don't believe what these people all tell you. Believe what's going on. Look at our history and look how we behave. That will tell you everything. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for letting me speak. I'll go on mute.
Brian, when you get a chance, I would like to say something when you choose to call on me.
Of course, I appreciate it. Siegel, you had something that you'd like to say, and then we're going to roll back into Malcolm, and then we'll let Sarah go.
I just want to say that, first of all, when I came here, I never spoke about Pahlavi. Pahlavi is my personal choice, and it is, again, if you find polls, he is actually the most popular figure inside Iran. I'm not here to advocate for him. I'm here to advocate for the freedom of Iranians. What I choose is what I choose, and what the people inside Iran choose is what the people inside Iran choose. What I will say, the transitional government proposed by Pahlavi is a 100-day referendum that says that a 100-day transitional government that will lead to a referendum. The people inside Iran get to choose what kind of government they want, and then afterwards they will choose who will lead them. If they want a constitutional monarchy, they'll get a constitutional monarchy. For the audience, a constitutional monarchy is a form of secular democracy, in case you didn't know, because Well couldn't answer. Second of all, if they want constitutional monarchy or a republic, then we will go into voting. In that 100-day of transitional government, a lot of that things will be sorted out. Again, the Iranian people inside Iran, from every single person that we talk to, I'm not saying that I know what 90 million people want, but we know, again, from polls, from our own families, from people online, what is the sentiment, and it is regime change. Why it hasn't happened yet? Because we kept getting suppressed by guns, by the military, and again, we're getting executed, raped, tortured if we go outside. Evin prison is one of the worst prisons in the world, and it's full of dissidents being tortured and raped and eventually executed. Only in 2024, nearly 1,000 people were executed by this regime. That is a huge number. A majority of them are dissidents. I don't want to sit on this panel anymore with people that are literally, do not interrupt me. mouthpieces of the regime. It is really distressing for us, and I know I get like emotional, but there is a reason. When you see people that are oh my god, my brain is dying. The Islamic regime operatives and agents sit in spaces in America, where we came to fled from our oppressors, and we see them sit here freely, advocate for a regime, and spread propaganda that everything is fine and dandy, and that Israel is the aggressor, that Israel is going to be destroyed. No, they're not. Israel is decimating every single regime, station, George, help me, place inside Iran.
Sorry, what were you looking for?
My brain is dying. I'm on 3 hours of sleep.
She's trying to say they're hitting all their targets. You're right. Like Israel is hitting a lot of their.
Thank you, Will. Yeah, they're not indiscriminately bombing Iran. They're not doing any of that. And again, the people of Iran have no issue with Israel, and they do not have an issue with the Jewish people. It's the Islamic regime that has the issue. Just want to say that.
Are you saying, not to cut you off, but are you saying that a good majority of the Iranian public support the campaign that Israel is carrying out in Iran?
Yes, they are.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Tell that to the 600 killed and thousands injured sequel.
Well, is it 600 billion babies and I don't know, whatever like the propalis say? I'm not here to like do this right now. Thank you, Brian, for having
That's
me.
condescending to your own people. To say that about your own people is unbelievable.
Omar. Sure, a non-Iranian person tell me about my country. I'm gonna go. Thank you, Brian.
How dare you disrespect them like that?
How dare I disrespect? Shut up. I'm gonna go. Thank you, Brian, for having us and giving us the opportunity to talk. I hope the audience. I'm here for the audience. You know that who the Islamic operatives are, and food for thought, knowing what comes out of their mouth. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I appreciate you being here. Malcolm, quick question for you. It's evident that Iran's cybersecurity capabilities aren't theoretical anymore. We've seen that they've hit multiple banks, energy grids, and more. How serious is the cybersecurity threat right now if this were to escalate?
I'm not quite sure what their capability is against anyone that's like Israel, for example. I think the Israelis are far more capable and have defensive systems up. We've seen some really impressive Iranian attacks. I mean, when they attacked Aramco and essentially destroyed every computer, what was that, about 8 years ago? Destroyed every computer in the Saudi oil industry with a virus. That was incredible. It was so bad the Saudis literally had to buy 2 or 3 factories in Indonesia to remake all of their computers. So we haven't seen that because Iran right now is in survival mode, which is they are fighting a kinetic battle on the battlefield. And if anybody is there in cyber operations, they're going to lay low until there's reestablished a command structure and they could do something clever. But if they do something clever, they're going to do something clever to a non-participant in this war right now, because they can take their licks at Israel, and the things that they did there were minor, and they were not anything that would have changed the balance of the war or Israel's warfighting capabilities.
Absolutely. And on that note, if Israel draws Hezbollah into this and our assets take fire, what's the first thing that happens tactically? Who commands the response here? I'm sure CENTCOM has a lot to do with this, but how fast do we go from containment to full-on combat?
I don't see Hezbollah actually being a factor. I mean, yeah, they could carry out terrorism. They could ruin everybody's decade the way that they did me in the 1980s when they started kidnapping Westerners. We had 110 Westerners that were kidnapped. And when I wasn't working the Iran-Iraq war or a special mission or Libya or Syria, I was assigned to try to, with teams of people, try to isolate and find those hostages that Hezbollah had taken. They could always do that. But none of this is a big factor in the war. All it does is what H&I, right? Harassment and interdiction and just plain old terrorism. But that would yield, if Hezbollah does anything, that would yield an Israeli response, much less an American response. I think we should try to limit what we're going to do to the minimums that if we have to do it, if ordered to do it. And that way we don't go into a theater level war. It's one thing to have a regional war, but it's another thing to have it start crossing into South Asia and Asia, or have terrorism in Bahrain or something like that. I don't think the Iranians are ready to do that. They have a lot of asymmetric capacity. I'm not joking. They could land 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 commandos and lose 1,000 of them on the way over, but they could devastate some things if they chose to do it. And we're not seeing that. I think they're just waiting and seeing how the Israelis or the Americans end this.
And I love that you touched on multi-theater warfare. That led me to my next question. After this, I'll let Sarah and Will speak. But does the United States have a strategy in place for a multi-theater response? Or are we kind of sleepwalking into a Middle East conflict without a real exit strategy? Because it's very likely that our preemptive strikes with Israel to prevent Iran from ever creating nuclear capabilities may just well be the catalyst to that capability.
Yeah. Well, listen, first I'll answer that, but this is going to be my last question because it's Friday night and I've got a bad cold. So
no, I appreciate it. Thanks
that.
for being here.
We are already in a multi-theater war. We have assets, American assets from European Command, Africa Command, Middle East Central Command, which is Middle East Force, and South in PACOM, which are now in chopping, right? Aircraft carriers are coming in through Asia Pacific. Africa Command controls the Red Sea and whatever the Houthis are doing. European Command is controlling all the ships in the Eastern Mediterranean. Central Command controls, all the frontline operations facing Iran and coordinating those other commands to supporting their mission. Central Command forward, of course, is new date. So so we are already there for the American side. Can all of these regions be drawn into it? What if? Okay, here's a scenario that I know a lot of guys don't think about, but I've fought wars in each one of those operational areas. Which is horrible, but it's true. So Yemen, instead of doing the usual bebop, shooting things at Israel or Saudi Arabia or the United Arab Emirates like they shot drones to once, what if we wake up and there are drones and ballistic missiles hitting Djibouti, right? U.S. base in Djibouti, which is right next to the Chinese base, right? That could be bad. Same thing with them bringing in the Gulf states, from the rear, sort of like a dagger in the back. They could bombard Riyadh again, Jeddah, which they've done before. And, like I said, they struck Abu Dhabi airport with a drone, and no one even thought that a drone could come from Yemen across the Rub' al Khali, right? The empty quarter. I lived in Abu Dhabi for 10 years, and I always thought, they're going to get it, one of these days from the Yemenis. But you've got to watch all of these theaters. And then there's the Iraqi factor. I know Ayatollah Khamenei made a call for essentially jihad, to recreate the Battle of Khyber, and was calling on all Shia Muslims to rise up. Remember that story about how my God told me he would kill me if given the opportunity? Well, Muqtada al-Sadr of Iraq hasn't called for it yet. And he's the real player. The imams of Iraq, they're laying low, and the popular mobilization forces haven't risen up to strike America or try to overrun the bases. The Iraqi government hasn't, which is predominantly Shia, hasn't collapsed. They've got a level of stability I'm quite impressed with, but you never know. And so all of these factors could come to bite us simultaneously. I'm hoping that, again, calmer heads prevail. I think we should tell the Iranians straight up, we're going to wipe out, Fardo. Get your people away from it. We are watching it in real time. Don't move nothing, right? And just watch the end of your nuclear program. And we're done. If you do anything outside of that, you'll lose your Navy. You'll lose all of your air defense and fighter aircraft. By the way, the Iranian Air Force, I think I mentioned this before, have not been engaging or engaged. Having been done, are not part of the factors that will bring the war to an end, but they could certainly escalate.
Sorry, what Iranian Air Force?
The Iranian Air Force. The Iranian Air Force has not been engaged as far as
wasn't much of it destroyed.
God, can we stop the interrupting, please?
Hold on.
I'm asking a question.
I am only going by what the Israelis tell us. And the Israelis' count is that they have destroyed 5 Cobras in Kermanshah with video and the 2 F-14s at the Mehrabad rework facility. They were derelict. We have not had any claims of...
The F-14s were in a museum, right?
Yeah. And but that was
so
at
they
the
were
main
working planes, right, Malcolm?
Correct. So there's still 38-ish F-14s out there, probably now at Isfahan. They're probably further east at Shiraz and displaced to Bandar Abbas and maybe even to that, Igor 88. Ballistic missiles coming into Israel. But all of these places, the Iranian Air Force is not engaged. And they're holding out. That's regime survival stuff. They
can't just fly, Malcolm. You're ruling that out?
I have literally watched these aircraft for decades. They can fly if they want to.
Malcolm, you know the F-14s have never been maintained.
Oh my God! Really? Can we keep this?
Brian,
unfortunately,
please.
That's not true. They actually do fly, but they're old. But old does not mean that they are not factored in by our intelligence and cannot be lethal. They can be lethal. So all of these things, we can't, 5 days, this is not the 6-day war. The Israelis have not taken out every air base. They have not even claimed it. They have not claimed any air-to-air kills. They have not claimed any air bases struck other than Isfahan, Mehrabad, Kermanshah. I don't even think they've hit Tabriz, where there are F-5s and other things like that. I don't know I think they just don't count them because they're not flying. They don't fly, they don't die. So, but the United States will definitely make sure there is no Iranian Air Force if we get into this war. And that, is funny because, maybe the Air Force and the Army are hedging their bets and are not aligned with the IRGC enough. And if we attack them, then they will defend their airspace in their country. And we may antagonize a force that might have just stayed out of it. Americans are too stupid. I'm going to be honest with you. They're too stupid to factor these things in. And when guys like myself and Alan give our professional opinion, right? These guys will say, yeah, thanks for that. We're going to go kick their ass. And dumbass things happen.
Yep. Sarah, you had your hand up. Right. I'm going to go to you next, and then we're going to go to Monitor. You had something you wanted to...
Guys, I have to drop out. So thanks
you,
for
Malcolm.
the engaging conversation. We'll see what happens here. All right.
Thanks, Malcolm. Thanks for being here, Malcolm. Thank you so much. We'll talk.
Thanks for being a badass, Malcolm. You're amazing.
Brian, George was asking if you could bring it back up because he had a glitch.
George,
back up.
George is back up.
May I say something, please?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Thanks. So I just want to say, I am the least astute person on this panel. I'm just a person from Midland, Texas, who has who knows history, right? Who has personal history. I do have a bias because my ancestors were killed in by the Nazis. Okay, and I'm an attorney too, and I know how to neutralize my feelings pretty well with argument and not get emotional. But as a woman and as a Jew, I want to say it's very hard to watch these regimes in the Middle East suppress females. It's extremely hard, and I think we sanitize that a lot, and I don't want to sanitize it. Okay, it was really hard for me when I watched in Afghanistan when 98% or whatever effing Americans wanted to get out, when we had a very small force there that was relatively safe, keeping peace and allowing women to go to school for the first time in forever. And instead we got out because we wanted to get out of Afghanistan. We were tired. And it was hard for me as a woman to see the stories of these girls that were going to school that were suddenly put back into places and put into hiding with their headdresses on and suppressed again. And a generation is basically wiped out because America got tired. Okay. And I understand, and I love Malcolm, and I love all these people who are erudite, but I do have to stand up. Number one, Israel is not the 100% boogeyman all the time. I can't deal with this anymore. Netanyahu is not who I would want to see heading Israel. And Trump is not who I want to see heading America. But would I be happy if we destroyed the Iranian nuclear capabilities? And if Trump gets props for it, I don't give a damn. Okay. And we need to start thinking, are we anti-Trump? I mean, what is it okay, number one, for Iran to have nuclear capabilities when and actually threaten the annihilation of Israel? That's what they are doing. And I heard Jake Tapper, and I understand he's the boogeyman right now of CNN or whatever, but he made a really good analogy. He said if people in Mexico, if the head of Mexico said, I am going to destroy America, I have nuclear capabilities, we are going to go to America and we're going to destroy you because we can't stand you. I mean, would you blame America for wanting to destroy Mexico's capabilities? I mean, so here's the deal. I understand. I understand that it's real. It's very hard for me to take emotion out of this at this point. It is really, really hard when we are negating all the women in these countries that are living behind. I can't imagine being dressed like that and living behind veils and having to cover up my body and basically having your own personal prison, number one. And so I am really hoping, and I know that it's not reality. I understand that, Brian, and all the Brians and Malcolm, I understand it's not reality, but we sure are hoping that a miracle happens. I am. On behalf of all women, I hope a miracle happens. And I just want to say to all the educators out there and all the intellectuals and all the people out there, please don't get frustrated when we as women speak. And because I do feel that we are connected around the globe and we are tired of being suppressed and being in Texas. I'm watching it happen in America, guys. I'm watching the suppression of women's rights, the religion taking over. It's really making me sick. And as an attorney, I just wanted to stand up for, I don't know what her name was that was speaking so passionately, but I understand your passion. And don't give up. And I just want to say, I do want to believe in a miracle. And I hope maybe you're wrong, Brian and Malcolm. And I hope that there is a regime change in Iran. And I hope for peace. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Sarah. George and Will Coin. But before you guys go, Monitor had her hand up for quite some time now, so you could go.
Thank you, Brian. So a couple of things were said that were inaccurate.
Before Monitor was me. My hand was up even before Monitor.
I'm going to be quick so he can go after me. So a couple
that's fine. Warren, you're right after her. I apologize.
So a couple of things that I'm going to correct. Well, first of all, the death toll, someone over here mentioned something about 600 people. According to the Islamic Republic in Iran, and its outlets. The death toll so far has been 200 and maximum 40 people. So please refrain from spreading misinformation and propaganda. Around 1,200 people have been injured, and majority of the death toll belongs to the nuclear scientists and IRGC commanders and other heads of the states. Okay, so that's something that I would like to correct, because it was said on your space that was inaccurate. When it comes to the polling that George mentioned, and he added the poll up there, someone asked for the organization that institution that conducted these polls. It's called Gemon Institute. I even added you, Brian, in under the link for the space. I put the link there. I even added the guy who's the lead of that research, which is hated, absolutely hated by the monarchists. Okay, so that's just a given to you to sort of realize who he is, because he's more towards the left of the spectrum rather than the right. Okay, and when it comes to first of all, I want to talk to you guys about my personal experience with my family that resides in Tehran.
Excuse me. Could you send that to me in DMs? I haven't seen. If you tagged me in something, it probably got drowned out.
Not you, Brian. The other Brian, but you can find it under your space.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but there's so many comments we can't find it. We're saying we can't find it. Yeah, because it's not easy to find it. There's so many comments. That's all I was saying before.
It's not in the pill. It's up top. It's up top. Up top, above you, above your head.
I have a different setup. I don't see that.
I'll send it to you, both of you, Brian's, personally in your DMs, okay?
Yeah,
after I'm done. Thank you. In regards to, I'm going to talk about my own experience. I have my father, my mother, my sister, and my brother, and my niece who reside in Tehran. They have left the city of Tehran on the second day of the strikes, and they're outside of the city, around 40 to 50 kilometers outside of the city, in a summer house that we have in Jad Chalus. Nobody's heard from my family. Nobody's heard from my husband's family and any of our relatives. None of their houses have been hit by any struck. And from what I'm hearing, what's getting struck in the city of Tehran, and I only speak for the province of Tehran because I don't have family elsewhere that I can have contacts with as we speak. So basically, majority of the hits have been either IRGC bases, Basij paramilitary bases, buildings that are related to the government, and also the nuclear facilities that are based in Tehran and elsewhere throughout the country. Now, my assumption of this Israeli campaign is that they have three goals. And one of their goals is for Iran to not have any domestic enrichment. Number two is for the ballistic missile program to get ended. And number three, for Iran, well, not Iran, for the Islamic Republic to stop funding and stop supporting the terrorist militias that exist in the region. And Israel has been so far pretty successful when it comes to eliminating their threat. I'm going to start with Hezbollah. They've eliminated the threat of Hezbollah. They do not get to operate as we speak. Otherwise, they would have been striking Israel if they had the capabilities. But just because they've been neutralized, they don't have the capabilities as we speak. And also, the leader of Hezbollah, Naim Qasem, I believe his name is, they put out a statement. It's out there. Please Google it and read. They put out a statement that they are unable to lend a hand to Iran because of the situations they're in right now. Now, Iran no longer has the land of Syria, which was a route for Iran to basically support Hezbollah and use that route for to transfer weapons to Hezbollah. So that path is also gone. What's left is the militias that are in Iraq. And as you can see, they've been very silent. And I believe the reason why they're silent, it's because they know better not to do anything. Otherwise, this conflict is going to spill over to Iraq. I personally don't think that Israel has it in their agenda to attempt a regime change in Iran. This is my personal belief. However, if during these 2-3 weeks, something were to happen for Iranians to come to the streets, to topple the regime, if that were to happen, it's a bonus for the Israelis, and they can take this win. Now, when it comes to Iranian Air Force, like Malcolm was playing with the words, and I do actually respect his analysis because number one, he's a veteran, of United States of America, so I respect that. I've read his books. I've watched his analysis on TV and all of that. However, when it comes to Iranian Air Force, Iran really doesn't have an Air Force. So let's just be frank with each other. And that's why they're not using it to sort of confront the Israeli jets when they're flying into the air in Iran. So that's one of the main reasons why you don't hear anything from Iran's Air Force. And what else was said that was wrong? That's pretty much about it for now. Oh, something else that I was going to say. The Iranian society is not a monolith. Okay, we do have people on the left of the spectrum. We do have people on the right of the spectrum. We have the monarchists. We have the socialists. We have all kinds, just like the American society. And as you can tell, the Iranian society, I don't mean to be disrespectful to any other country in the region, but the Iranian society, considering the last 100 years, we have had 2 revolutions that were directed for democracy. We had the White Revolution. Then we had another revolution that was for the constitutional monarchy that we had. So for like having that said, and considering what you see in Iran, and for the past 5 decades, the plea of the people taking to the streets numerous times and peacefully protesting. If you notice, Iranians didn't form a militia group within the country like Hamas, and just they didn't create no bloodsheds to reclaim basically their freedom. They're doing their best via protesting, social disobedience to reclaim their country. But the regime is not working with the people. It's been 5 decades that they have shown that they're not going to step back from their goals, from their ideology that they've established since their inception, which was number one, to be the number one enemy of United States of America, because they were against imperialism. I mean, if you listen to Khomeini's speeches, you can hear all of this. And their number 2 goal was to eliminate Israel. They had said it first. They had said it from day one that we want to reclaim Jerusalem, or as they say, Quds. They created a day for Quds, which is called the Quds Day. It's an international Quds Day, and they march all over the world because they want to globalize basically their jihad against Israel and reclaiming Jerusalem/Quds. So when it comes to Iranians, they have done whatever they possibly could. However, within Iran, as my dad always says, when it comes to past, present, and future, Iran has another one, which is past, present, future, the Shah's time. Nobody can take away this experience from the Iranian people. Why? Because it's so close that they have the memory, they have the nostalgia of that era, okay? During the Pahlavi's time, Iranians had tremendous social freedom. Women were able to sing, women were able to take part in politics, women were able
even
to...
a gay marriage.
Even gay marriage, I remember that one was actually registered. So we had Iranian ministers, we had Iranian judges. Iranian female population right now is not even allowed to become a judge because under the ideology of the Islamic Republic, which stems from Islamism, a woman is not fit to become a judge. So understand the frustration of the Iranians. Now, every Iranian, if the regime would fall, has one vote, guys. But majority of Iranians, what they want is a secular democrat Iran. I am not a monarchist. The previous monarchist that you had in the space, her name was Siegel. I didn't like the way Brian was talking down to her. However, she has me blocked. The same guy Warren over here, he's a monarchist. He has me blocked because I'm not a monarchist.
I'm not a monarchist.
Because I'm not a Sorry, did you meet me?
Yeah, go ahead. Just one person at a time, please.
So,
sorry, we were
my turn?
You're allowed to finish. So we're going to be winding down here.
muted. I'm going to be done.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure, I'm going to let you go, and then we're going to wrap up with Willcoin, Ozzy, and Warren.
Sure.
I think you had told me to speak earlier. You kind of forgot.
I'm going to be done, guys. I'm going to wrap it up in a couple of sentences. So I'm sorry, I lost the train of my thought. But so talking down to Iranians who their families are now in Iran under strikes. First of all, it's very insensitive and it's very ignorant of the.
I'm so sorry. We were here to discuss facts. Can we stop talking about me and this other person? This is so immature. We were talking facts, and I disagree with her facts.
I haven't.
This is nonstop.
Okay. Remove from speaker. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
I haven't even mentioned your name.
Please, guys, let's go back to the subject matter so we could wrap it up here. Monitor, you complete your point. Please
Fantastic. Thank you.
To George.
Monica, thank you. I just unblocked you. By the way, I'm not a monarchist. I'm just supporting Reza Pahlavi as the
transitional. It's okay. We can have this conversation elsewhere, please.
Okay,
this is
I know. Okay.
Time and the space.
I just unblocked you, by the way.
So when it comes to Iranians, guys, it's our population is not a monolith. Rather than the people who support the regime, the Iranians who don't support the regime may also not support Israel. Some support Israel, just like the leftists in the United States of America in the campuses going against Israel. We do have some Iranians who are not pro-regime, but are also against Israel. There are crazy people everywhere, right? So this is what I was going to just tell you. But I know what Iranians thrive for is a secular democrat Iran. Thank you.
And nationalist. Actually, because territorial integrity is very important and they don't want separation. So
thank you, Brian. I'm gonna
thanks, Brian. I'll be quick because I know you want to wind down the space. So Warren, if you don't mind muting just for a minute, thank you. Basically, I wanted to address Malcolm's point earlier about Air Force. I so enjoy his commentary and his books often, but I will say I was really surprised to hear about the Air Force too. The reason that, and I put this up in the nest up top, the reason that the Air Force is not sortieing, okay, is because they know they're going to get their ass shot down instantly. Just take a quick look, click up top. You're going to see that, basically, the Iranian Air Force has a kind of a motley fleet of American and really old American and Soviet aircraft. They have F-4s, F-5s, F-14s. They have MiGs, MiG-29s and SU, it's like Sukhoi 24s, right? They have very, very limited capabilities. They're relying on pretty old platforms. There's sanctions on Iran's ability to modernize these platforms. Their air defenses relied heavily on surface-to-air missiles, and they've been taken out, all their air defenses. So their chances of being shot down and losing all of their planes, whatever they have that wasn't damaged by the hits to air bases so far, is zero. They have zero chance, and so they're not sortying. They're not going up. They're not, like he was saying, like, well, there's been like no planes shooting down planes. That's right, because they're grounding themselves and they're hoping they can preserve. By the time this war is done, they're hoping they'll still be able to have a few planes intact. But if they go up, they definitely will not have any of the planes that go up intact. And Israeli and American planes are state of the art. They are the cutting edge of military aircraft right now. And the Israelis are actually one of the only, I think the only nation that's been permitted to modify American aircraft and further customize them to their needs. So that's what I wanted to say. And then the last thing is that there was a gentleman who spoke earlier who tried to did everything but call Israel the little Satan and America the great Satan. And I find it like amazing that, he really couldn't control himself and started, talking about all the terrible, evil things Israel does. And then he kind of went back to like making his point. But at the end of the day, and then he tried to say like, well, Israel's alone, no one's supporting Israel. Actually, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. The Saudis are supporting Israel. The Jordanians are shooting down Islamic regime ordnance and drones and things like that. I probably misspoke, and I forget the exact things they shot down, but they just recently helped. The Americans are helping. The French the French, by the way, I don't know. Like, it just depends on what day they wake up, what side of the bed they fall out of, because like they were like, oh my God, like we support our ally Israel. That was Macron. The UAE supports them. You'll see Hezbollah did not come out with any positive statement and no actions, right? You don't see the Iranians, you don't see the Houthis. No one's lifting a finger to help the Islamic regime, partially because the Islamic regime commanded them with their little bitch Qatar to go and attack Israel on October 6th, and then they proceeded to let them hang out there. So the Houthis are not big fans of the Islamic regime at the moment, but Hezbollah definitely is not. When 5,000 of their people were maimed, right? And the money's drying up, right? The personnel are drying up. Everyone is saying the Islamic regime is alone, is at its weakest point ever. And lastly, something that I think Munider and some others alluded to, Siegel did too. Iran is not Iraq. Iran is not Afghanistan. Iran, yes, has many different ethnicities and many different types of people, but they are much more unified and patriotic as Iranians, okay? Yes, there's always, whenever you have power shifts, there is always a chance of sectarian problems and civil wars and things like that. But America, again, let's be clear, America is not being asked by Israel to go and do regime change. Israel is in fact explicitly saying, don't do that, okay? America has been asked to do nothing until recently, and then asked, please maybe bring some B-52s that we can drop some like really deep, in-depth bombs down into nuclear sites. So it's being asked at most, right, for tacit logistical support and maybe a couple of bombing sorties. That's it. That's it. And just on those sites, it's not being asked for troops on the ground. It's not being asked to be involved in a war. And so when everyone is out there saying no American troops on the ground, the Israelis are like, yeah, that's right. And we don't want our troops on the ground either. Right? What they want is exactly what Munider, outlined, which is no nuclear weapons, no ability to deliver them, no continued funding of terrorist organizations. And frankly, that is in America's interest, because America has been attacked continuously by the Islamic regime for 25 plus years, including 180 attacks in the past 2 years. Right, on American military. So we want this to stop. The rest of the world doesn't want the Islamic regime doing the shit they're doing anymore.
It was my turn, I guess, for 30 minutes.
Yeah,
I'm not done yet. So I just want to talk. Okay. I just want to say that I want, first of all, also, like Munita said, poll from Gaman, something like that. Also, there's another poll from Gaman from 2020 that only 40% of Iranian people are Muslims and 30% believe in the world after this world that we're living, like a world after death. So even it was before Mahsa Amini, 2 years before that. So now it's numbers like lower than 2 years ago. So yeah, like 75,000 mosques just got closed because of it, and we can see, some people claim that Israel bomb hospitals. No. Like Pirosi Kabalban, the director of Hell Ahmar, something like this. Like it's like a red the Red Cross in America and Europe. So it's for Islamic regime and some other neighbor countries. So he said that no hospitals get hit directly. He said that besides of the hospitals, there were some targets, and smoke went into rooms, and like the people who were in the hospital had some breath issues. Also, I just wanted to tell you another thing that some people are just claiming. So the 1979 didn't happen because of some people wanted freedom. It happened because some people were leftists, like 70% of the Iranian university students, and they followed Tudeh, followed Fadai, or followed MEK. So that's why, like, from top universities, they joined those cults and groups and did all of those horrible things. So, by saying that, from this perspective, also 1953 wasn't the coup that some leftists are claiming. I don't know, maybe this whale, which is a hardcore same agenda, is a pro-Mossadegh, and he's like supporting Mossadegh. Also, 53 wasn't the coup. It was actually Shah's right to appoint or remove any ministers, including the prime minister. So it was Article 46 of the constitutional monarchy. So it was a coup by Mossadegh, and then it was a revolution by the people, and then said the Shah again. And Mossadegh said, "Oh, the Iranian oil belongs to all Muslim countries." So yes, there was some disinformation there, but the libertarians and progressive, they're using the same narrative. And actually, we left. Kosa Madari's daughter.
No,
left. And
wait,
yes,
why?
and
Hold on.
Again.
Am I being slandered right now? What's going on? Do you even know?
Nothing.
What?
Nothing. Just ignore.
Hold on. I'm a what? I don't understand. If you're gonna slander me, then give me.
I didn't slander you, Brian.
I'm not Brian. I thought you said whale.
Whale, because whale is not here.
I'm here. I'm talking to you right now. I thought you said whale.
Okay, I said whale. I slandered you. Actually, you can just take it as a slander or not. It's not my decision.
Well, what did I say about Mossadegh at all? I haven't spoken.
All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'm gonna allow the Dr. Strange account. You've held your hand for quite some time. I will allow you to speak, and then we're gonna close off with Ozzy. She wanted to also express something, and then we're gonna be winding down. Thank all you guys for being here.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. So, what I'm about to share with you comes from someone who has had deep animosity towards the Iranian regime for at least 30 plus years. And I have studied the politics of the region, and hopefully I can provide you with a more objective perspective. For one thing, the poll that George shared, I've looked into it. Undoubtedly, there are Iranians in Iran and outside Iran that hates the regime. You cannot deny that. That is a reality. But the following are some issues I have with this poll. In 2016, all the pollsters were saying that Hillary Clinton is going to win. And these are some of the best pollsters in the world who completely got it wrong. One, this poll was done online, and that exposes a number of issues and biases given the cultural dynamics of Iran, because it targets more a group of the affluent. If you're doing online polls, some 46,000 of those polled do not live in Iran, and it's not context based, right? The poll simply asked Islamic regime, yes or no, and a lot of people said no. Now, people's attitude change based on situation. If you ask them, do you want regime change with foreign intervention, military intervention, you're going to get a very different perspective or different response. And also, Iran International, the entity that shared this, is a dissident channel that operates outside of Iran, and it's funded by the Saudis. And as you know, Saudis are like, they're diehard, they're arch enemies of Iran for decades. So they want regime change there as well. And this poll was taken like 2 years ago, by the way. And a lot of these polls can easily be manipulated. I mean, this is what Trump has echoed many times and others have echoed as well. So I would give very little credence to this poll because it's not really representative of the current situation. Now, what I have serious issues with, and I agree with Munitor. She said that the Iranian Air Force is non-existent, and I fully agree with that. I don't think it does exist. The issue I have is that many people are trying or pursuing to direct our attention and resources to achieve their political agenda. And because of their deep biases, they exaggerate, fabricate false threats, and manipulate our emotions to channel our resources and push us in one direction. There are a lot of terrible regimes out there, but that does not mean we have to go topple them all and spend trillions of dollars doing it. That said, the U.S. can decimate Iranian regime in no time. I would say in a matter of a few weeks, the entire regime can be decimated. But it's the day after that Trump is worried about and every other sane mind is worried about. Because we've seen this movie play out before. There is no way you're going to get a stable Iran without boots on the ground. And we've seen what boots on the ground means in Afghanistan, in Libya, in Iraq. We were supposed to be greeted as liberators, and we saw that it became quicksand with trillions of dollars spent, and now our deficit is, what, $37 trillion? Not all of it came from the war, but a good chunk of it did. And we had tens of thousands of servicemen killed. We have 25 to 30 vets who commit suicide. That's heartbreaking. I've met some of these widows whose husbands has taken their lives, and it breaks your heart, right? And nobody's paying attention to them. I wish Congress, there was more hearings for them to do more for their family and these vets who are going through major PTSD. This is an epidemic. This is like priority number one. And the Chinese and the Russians would love nothing more than for us to get involved in another quicksand in the Middle East for 10 years or so they can advance all of their technology while our head is stuck in the middle of the sand. So and lastly, there are a few million Iranians, not a lot, a few million, who are die-hard Ayatollah followers. And they will fight to the death. Because if you go back and see what they did with the war when they fought between the Iraqis, when they fought Saddam, these people, I mean, it was like brainwashing. They were just told to go basically kill yourself. And a lot of them went and did that. There were tens of thousands of Iranians who just went ahead and basically died in that war. It was a sure death, and they died. So don't expect that this is going to be a cakewalk and, Reza Pahlavi is going to come in and everybody's going to bow down to him and it's going to be a unified country. No, I would contend that this is more dangerous for the U.S. long term than even Afghanistan, because it has double the size of the population. It has 7 different neighbors with porous borders. It's got a diverse ethnic group, and you've got, every time there's a power vacuum, there's going to be groups that are going to vie for power. And there are a lot of grievances between some of these groups. This is not a cakewalk. Please don't get me wrong. I wish for the people who want regime change, I wish you the best of luck. And I hope that you can achieve it with the 80% that's in Iran. But I hope that I don't want the U.S. to get involved. I don't want a penny of the U.S. to get involved. I want that money to go towards our vets who've suffered, their families, and they're suffering every day, and we hardly do shit for them. And go speak with some of these vets who have PTSD, who are dying every day, taking their lives 25 to 30 per day. I can't believe that I'm even saying that in the best country in the world, with everything that's available, we've got 25 to 30 vets dying every day. I'll land it there. I apologize for blabbering on, but I hope you get my point. I wish you the best of luck. I hated the Iranian regime, but I just don't want the U.S. to be spending our sweat, blood, and money into another regime change that more than likely will get us stuck for years on end and cause, and you're going to have millions of refugees again going into Europe and the region. Drug trade is going to go up. The slew of problems that you're going to encounter is a shitload. I think the better thing to do is hopefully have an internal regime change where it does not come from boots on the ground. I'll land with that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We're sure we're not going to be able to trigger a regime change in Iran. It's not something that we are capable of. We have tried it multiple times in multiple countries in the Middle East, and it's failed every single time. But I will allow Ozzy to speak, and then we're going to wrap up here. She had some closing statements, and we're going to wrap up. Thank you all for coming. Go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. As you bring this to a close, I want to sort of return to a principle that has always defined my perspective from the start. Context matters, and we started talking about this context in the beginning with the panel, not just in geopolitics, but in personal life. And it matters because false narratives, whether at a national or individual level, they do have real human consequences. And I think that's at the core of some of the question that sparked this whole panel discussion, Brian. Recently, I've been targeted by coordinated harassment. And I would say recent, probably as in this year, in 2025, as early as January, February. I think a docs account that was created was put in the nest here that was launched in March. Chaos agents online have doxed me, circulated, manipulated falsehoods about my family, shared photos of my minor son, and that tweet, that page that is pinned to your nest over there includes the photo of my son, who is a minor, and posted defamatory claims across platforms. I've received death threats. I've had my privacy invaded. I've been falsely labeled as affiliated with the regime. Let me be very clear. These aren't just attacks on me. They're a part of a wider effort to suppress any voices that don't fit neatly into this pre-approved narrative that occurs in this box that we want. And we saw indications of it with different speakers on the panel and the diversity. And I appreciate what Malcolm had said earlier, what Dr. Strange just said, and many others. In response to this, I'm just going to say this once and for all on a recorded space. Multiple US federal agencies, including the FBI and others that have been investigating these for decades, since 2021 and 2022 when it happened, where I received boxes and packages at my home and my office and my family members. They have their position clear for me and my family, which gives me solace. And their statement to me and my family is, we know who you are. The United States knows you're not affiliated with the regime. And the truth about your background isn't really hard to find. I literally had an FBI agent tell me this a couple of months ago. And he said, all people just have to do is want to find it. And Google is there to find it. These agencies are also actively monitoring the social media accounts and networks continuing to circulate the doxing content, including those sharing or amplifying images of my minor child, which constitutes a serious violation of federal law and digital safety protections. And I appreciate Sarah being here as a lawyer. I think she can attest to that. My grandfather, Dr. Ebrahim Yazdi, served briefly as foreign minister after the 1979 revolution under the interim government of Prime Minister Bazargan. When the US embassy was seized, and this is all well known and documented, including declassified information, all you have to do again is go Google it. He resigned in protest on November 6th of 1979, warning it would derail the revolution or the movement and isolate Iran further. What's often omitted or deliberately erased, take it how you want, is that he also protested the hostage crisis. He stopped 2 other hostage crises that were going to happen before they actually happened. He opposed executions of political prisoners and spoke out early against the Iran-Iraq war. These positions are well documented, and they also cost him dearly. He was arrested, banned from political life, and eventually silenced. He later helped lead the Freedom Movement of Iran, a group dedicated to constitutional governance and civil liberties, and to bring Iran to the secular democracy that Munir was talking about, that was the intention of the revolution at some point. One often overlooked but deeply important part of his legacy is that he did play a direct role in helping secure the escape and safe passage of individuals who were on executions list, including Jewish Iranians, religious minorities. In fact, it's also documented that he supported a movement to bring to the forefront the persecution of Baha'is in Iran and others at risk in the immediate aftermath of the revolution. It's important to say this clearly from me, because some of the current doxing and coordinated harassment that I face that you all witnessed is rooted in a very deliberate effort to manipulate Jewish communities into hating me by spreading categorically false narratives about my grandfather and my family and who I am as an individual. Not who my grandfather was, not who my father was, but who I am. But the reality is facts matter, and so does historical integrity. And the historical integrity is extremely important, especially when we're talking about this stuff. Brian, you started talking about the Tucker Carlson interviews. We've seen Tucker Carlson even interview Dan Caldwell talking about the United States, in this constant history of regime change wars. Now, it's also true that my grandfather worked with a wide range of political actors during his time. And back then, including Yasser Arafat, which is also used as a stick to hit me on the head with. And at the time, in the revolutionary context, because context matters, in the revolutionary context of the late 1970s, he and many others believed that such alliances were part of building solidarity among national liberal movements. However way you want to look at it now in 2025, in the 70s, we all have to admit that it was a time of just revolutionary. We saw protests in America about different issues. We see them now still. Hindsight is always 2020. And like many historical figures, his choices reflected the climate of the revolutions at that time, where strategy and morality were often in tension. That doesn't mean I disavow that part of his record. I simply understand it for what it was, shaped by the urgency, chaos, and hope of that time. And history is full of leaders who, with good intentions at that moment, made choices that today we might approach differently. And the decisions that are made today, we might look at in 10 years or 20 years and think we could have approached them differently. What has moved me most in all of this, even amidst the smears, is that people across political spectrums, including monarchists, have reached out with kindness and shared their respect for him. One recurring things that they've told me: your grandfather once said, our biggest mistake during the revolution was saying, Faqat Shah bere, and in English that translates, let's just get rid of the Shah and we will take care of the rest later. This reflection haunts me and many others because I hear the same dangerous rhetoric now. Let's just get rid of this regime and we'll figure out the rest later. And if we're not careful, we're repeating the same mistake, in my humble opinion. And it won't be academics or activists who pay the price. It'll be, once again, everyday ordinary Iranians and voices like those that we heard on this stage. So no, I am absolutely not part of any regime. I've lived my entire life in the United States. I care about Iran as my family's heritage, but I don't live there. And it's not for me to decide its future. That is for the people of Iran to determine. And Malcolm said it best when he was here earlier. But I also care deeply about this country that I live in. I care about American service members. I care about my friend who served in special operations, deployed last minute to Afghanistan to evacuate troops under the most impossible conditions. I care about friends who fought ISIS across multiple tours, only to now see some of the same figures they fought being rebranded and repurposed as political allies or presidents. That kind of narrative, whiplash takes a toll. Our military may continue to do what it's asked of them, but the public's trust in why is breaking down. And narratives around Iran and Israel right now are feeding that mistrust. That brings me to something I deeply appreciated on this panel, especially Malcolm's thoughtful comments on polling. And I think Dr. Strange brought it up too here. I'm sorry, I just have two more things, two more minutes. Okay, I waited for like 2 hours amidst all of that. We entered an era where polls are used as weapons. In one breath, we're told we can't trust anything from inside Iran because of fear, surveillance, and coercion. But in the next breath, those same sources are cited to validate convenient talking points. So which is it? If one poll is invalid because people are scared to speak, then so is the next. You can't pick and choose based on outcome. Methodology matters. Who conducted the poll? How were those questions asked? What layers of interpretation were added or removed? And in its selective framing, this trend of historical revisionism is becoming a fad and now is common to flatten or distort the legacies of people to fit a simplistic binary of good or evil. But that revisionism doesn't serve truth. It only serves control. If we ever hope for a future based on justice and freedom, we have to confront the full history, even when it's convenient. So let me close with this. The real threat to progress, whether in Iran, in the US, or anywhere else, isn't disagreement. It's the refusal to tolerate complexity. Doxing, smearing, and bullying aren't activism, they're desperation. The metaphor that I always lean back on is, if an egg is broken by the outside, life ends. But if it breaks from within, life begins. And Iran's future, if it's going to be just and lasting, must come from within, not through bombs, not through memes, not through external engineering, but through voices, resilience, and agency of its own people. The agency of its people. And finally, what we've seen across this panel, from military analysis to legal framing to cultural insight, has been vital. And Brian, I really appreciate what you've done here. What ties it all together is a reminder that culture, memory, and language are not side notes. They are the main thread. And if we can't speak in ways people recognize as their lived truths, we're not actually building anything sustainable. We're just rearranging narratives. So to Alan, Malcolm, Brian, and Sarah, thank you for the depth and clarity you brought. Malcolm, his candor and honesty around data and public trust were refreshing. Brian, to you, the host, thank you, not just for moderating, but for curating a space where nuance, disagreement, and integrity were actually welcomed. And I hope that we have more spaces like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. And I appreciate your story. I appreciate all the members of the panel. Malcolm, Alan, Sarah, you guys have been great. Brian as well. Ozzy, beautiful story. I appreciate all the people we've brought up that have spoken. We will have more of these spaces in the future. Just keep my notifications on. You guys will see a lot of my posts. I'll be definitely hosting one more either by the end of the week. I believe they're set to make a decision soon. So I'll be hosting another space regarding that decision. Also, I will be keeping track of not only the air traffic in that region, but I'll also be keeping track of the aircraft carriers in that region. So I'll keep you guys updated as well. Again, thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to host. I appreciate everyone who showed up and listened, and we're here from the beginning. Thanks so much, and I see you next time.